McDonald's golden arches are starting to lose their shine. The fast food giant is facing a crisis. Growth is stalling, quality has plummeted, and customers are abandoning them. In early 2024, McDonald's reported a shocking drop in sales, down by 1% after years of success and growth. So how did one of the biggest corporations on the planet, an American institution, mess up so badly? In today's episode of the Infographics Show, we'll reveal the real reason McDonald's is failing. You're tired after a long day at work. You don't have the energy to cook anything. You're looking for something filling and tasty, and most importantly of all, because you've just checked your bank account and cried a little, cheap. So you drive to your nearest McDonald's. Solution found. You haven't been there for a few years, but you know this is where you can always get a cheap, tasty meal. You're in the drive-thru line ready to order your classic combo of a Big Mac, fries, and a soda. You glance up at the menu and your jaw drops. $5.99 for a Big Mac alone? And that's assuming you're not in one of those more expensive states. Looking at you, Hawaii, with your $7.39 Big Mac. We assume the increased price includes a tropical view. But you also want fries, $1.89 on average, and a Coke, $2.59. You try to do the math in your head and you realize you have a smartphone, you could just use the calculator app, and you arrive at a total of $10.47. Before taxes and fees? Who's running this place, Ronald or the Hamburglar? Since you make $7.25 an hour at your minimum wage job, you're about to pay almost an hour and a half of your wages just to eat, and to eat fast food, no less. On top of rent and bills and insurance, that's a lot of money. You might as well have gone to a casual sit-down restaurant and at least enjoyed better food. You remember when Big Macs used to famously cost 99 cents. How is it that you could easily grab a burger with your allowance when you were just a kid, and now you can barely afford it with your adult job? You can't have messed up your life that badly, right? Well, maybe, but maybe not. It might help to know it's not just you. In 2024, 2,000 Americans were asked their opinions about fast food, and 62% of them said they had to cut back because of the insanely high prices. In 2009, for example, when the federal minimum wage became $7.25 an hour, the average cost of a Big Mac was $3.57. In other words, it cost less than a half an hour's pay, even if you were making the smallest amount of money you could make. Inflation has hit everyone hard, but fast food prices are skyrocketing faster than most. Fast food prices have risen considerably faster than prices at sit-down restaurants and 3 times faster than supermarket prices. A shocking realization for anyone who has come back from their local Costco with empty pockets, or from their local Whole Foods bankrupt. If you're wondering whether you should brush up on your cooking skills, it may not be a bad idea. In fact, no less than the CEO of McDonald's, Chris Kempczinski, admitted on a recent call that eating at home has become more affordable. And that is bad news for fast food giants like McDonald's, even though it might be great news for your body and your overall health. Hey, you may not be able to make a meal as good as your mom did, but perhaps this way you could afford electricity. Waiting in line, you think back to when you stopped at Taco Bell and Wendy's recently, and you don't remember the prices being this bad. What happened over at Mickey D's? The reason for higher prices that has frustrated customers is McDonald's raising its prices more than it needs to. Finance Buzz found that between 2014 and 2024, inflation raised prices by about 31%. At McDonald's, however, items like the McNuggets became 83% more expensive in that same time. To be fair, most fast food chains also raised prices by an average of 60%, so everyone seems to be outdoing inflation. But McDonald's was the worst offender, tripling the rate of inflation. Popeyes, Taco Bell, Chipotle, and Jimmy John's raised their prices of the menu items at more than double the actual inflation rate. And the executives don't really seem to care. In October of 2023, the same CEO, who is now worried about customers leaving to cook at home, said, "Even though we're pushing through pricing, the consumer is tolerating it well." Or in simpler terms, those suckers are still paying us. Now, to be fair, McDonald's headquarters doesn't directly set all prices. 90% of McDonald's locations are owned by franchisees, who get to set their own prices. But the chain also raised prices because of a bad spiral they're in. Basically, McDonald's had to raise prices because they were getting less customers. Unfortunately, this has now become a cycle. As higher prices drive away more customers, McDonald's keeps raising them to make up the money. But wait, why are consumers leaving McDonald's in the first place? Well, let's get back to you, the McDonald's customer waiting to order. As you're trying to remember how much money you need for rent, you finally pull up to the drive-thru speaker to give your order, and suddenly a robotic voice starts to speak to you. Welcome to your first McDonald's AI order. You're paying way too much, but at least you're getting this cool, futuristic experience. You start to speak and the AI cuts you off to ask what you would like. You try to ask for your burger again and get cut off again. Now frustrated, you finally yell out your order. It's accepted. Suddenly, a receipt is printed out for $250 worth of chicken nuggets. You panic as you realize you probably aren't going to be able to pay your rent after all. And what about your Big Mac? McDonald's wanted to stay ahead of the game and gambled on AI being the next big leap forward for fast food stores instead of, good food and low prices, we guess. But never mind. They spent $1 billion putting AI into many of their drive-thru ordering systems, which started using the technology by 2021, and it was a complete disaster. The system didn't work half the time. If a customer paused or had to change something, the AI would get confused. If they spoke too fast or too slow, it wouldn't understand them. If they had a foreign accent, we're assuming they just gave up and went to Burger King. If the system did actually process their order, it would often mess it up anyway. People uploaded viral videos of the AI getting orders hilariously wrong, giving butter or ketchup instead of ice cream. And yes, in one crazy video, adding $250 of McNuggets to an order. McDonald's stands by their decision, saying their AI program was right 85% of the time. In other words, 15% of all orders were mistakes. Actions speak louder than words, and by July 2024, McDonald's had pulled all of its AI tech systems out of its stores. This tech disaster sent some customers away, but the quality of food at McDonald's has been turning people away for a while now. McDonald's was never known for its amazing cuisine, but it was reliably good for fast food. And most importantly, fast. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Let's get back into the store and discover why. You finally get up to the service window to pick up your food. The employee tells you it's gonna take a minute. So you wait, and you wait, and wait. What happened to fast food? It's right there in the name. Finally, you give up and go park your car, telling the employees you'll pick up the food inside and not hold up the line. Customers have been complaining about longer wait times at McDonald's for over a decade now. One reason for longer waits is McDonald's trying to fix the horrible frozen food it serves. When new fast casual restaurants, the word for restaurants that serve food relatively fast but usually have fresher options, popped up, and they used fresh meat for their food, customers turned their backs on McDonald's. Young customers were especially done with the Golden Arches, to the tune of 500 million visits lost in McDonald's since 2012. So McDonald's decided to offer healthier options to get some younger people back into their stores. They switched from frozen patties shipped from whole states away to fresh patties for their burgers. Well, at least for the Quarter Pounders. But this threw a wrench into the whole McDonald's food-making system. It took longer to make fresh patties, and workers who had never done it before needed time to get it right. This led to 10, 15, and 20-minute waits in a place where people expected to wait no more than 3 to 4 minutes for their food. The flood of people leaving McDonald's for places like Shake Shack and Chipotle continued to swell. Back to the endless wait. You finally hear your name called at the counter. You go, you pick up your food, and sit down to eat. Might as well, since you're already in the store. You open your mouth to take a massive bite of your juicy, delicious burger, and a wave of disappointment washes over you. What? This is what you paid all that money for? The fries are still delicious though because it's the one thing McDonald's does right. And we do mean the one thing. Getting past the meh taste of the burger, you finish it since you're hungry anyway, and as you swallow your last bite, your eyes fall on the menu above the service counter. The calories of each option are listed right next to the food. You don't remember McDonald's doing that, and most importantly, you can't believe how many calories you just ate. In September 2012, McDonald's realized its customers were getting smarter about food and paying more attention to what they were eating. So it decided to start posting the calorie count of their menu choices, and that turned out to be a big mistake. All it did was remind increasingly health-minded people about how many calories they were eating with each McDonald's meal. The Big Mac, fries, and Coke you got added up to 970 calories, with a couple of ketchup packets because no one eats fries plain, right? Rounded up to 1,000. That's half of your suggested daily calories, maybe more than half if you're tinier than most. Just one, not that filling and not that great of a burger, Running 1,000 calories is a lot, especially with bad service, and many Americans now agree. The American Customer Satisfaction Index organization, also known as ACSI, did a survey of 15,000 customers in 2023 and 2024. They asked them about restaurants and fast food chains in the US, and of all fast food companies, McDonald's came in dead last. People were unhappy with wait times, incorrect orders, and even more importantly, the food itself. McDonald's also came in last compared to full-service restaurants as well. Completely disappointed by your time at McD's, the next time you're hungry and you walk by, you'll pause at the door and decide to go one block over to Chili's instead. The experience shocks you. You relax at this sit-down restaurant with an actual server walking up to take your order and give you your food. And not only is the food the same price, but you're getting much more of it. A McDonald's patty is 1.6 ounces before cooking. Since the Big Mac has 2, that's 3.2 ounces of meat before cooking. A Chili's Big Smasher burger inspired by Big Macs has a patty that weighs 8 ounces. You'll also notice there's a lot more sauce on this burger, and it's juicier overall. The menu says it costs $12.99 before taxes and fees. Oh boy, that is pricier than McDonald's, but your waiter tells you Chili's has a 3 for me deal where you can not only get the burger but bottomless chips and salsa and a drink for $10.99. One reviewer compared the Big Mac to a Chili's Big Smasher burger and found that in her Connecticut neighborhood, a Big Mac meal and a 3 for me Chili's deal with a burger cost the exact same amount. Only difference, the Chili's burger was much bigger and tasted better. No wonder McDonald's customers have left the store. You've got $10 in your pocket, a rumbling in your stomach, and a big question to answer: McDonald's versus Taco Bell. In today's episode of the Infographics Show, we'll be putting the Big Mac against the Crunch Wrap, the Clown against the Chihuahua, and you might be surprised by the results. Round 1. Tale of the Tape. Obviously, these two fast food giants are household names, amongst the largest in the world. But which is the largest? McDonald's is known worldwide since its founding in 1940, and a look at the data is pretty staggering. In 2024, the company had almost 13,500 units in the United States alone, with almost all of them being franchises. When you look in the global market, the number more than doubles to a staggering 40,000 in countries around the world. That's taken the company to a global revenue of over $25 billion. Can the much newer Taco Bell compete? In a word, no. The Bell will have other categories to shine in, but McDonald's has built a lead that is near impossible to compete with. But that doesn't mean Taco Bell hasn't made up ground since it debuted on the scene in 1962. Today it has around 7,400 units in the United States, over 90% of them franchisees, and globally it rises to just over 8,500. Taco Bell has not really cracked the international market in the same way its rival has, and while its total revenue of $15.9 billion is impressive, there is no beating the Golden Arches this time. Winner, McDonald's. But where does the competition fit in? Round 2. The market. To stay on top of the fast food game, you need to be the first name your customer base thinks of, and the more competitors you have, the harder it gets. That is definitely the case for McDonald's. While they might still be the top name in burgers, the Burger King definitely wants that crown. Don't count out Little Wendy's either. And then there's the scrappy new kids on the block like Shake Shack, Sonic, and Wahlburgers. And if In-N-Out breaks its West Coast containment, all bets are off. The burger market is mobbed and it's only going to get more crowded. But how many burrito battlers are out there? The picture is a little more complicated when it comes to Mexican food. Taco Bell is the top Mexican chain in the United States, although every major city has a few hundred independent taquerias at this point. There are other Mexican chains out there, most notably Chipotle. But while Taco Bell emphasizes value and old-school Tex-Mex food, Chipotle emphasizes larger meals with premium meats. The two chains coexist, but they don't really compete for the same diners. The same goes for smaller chains, Qdoba and Moe's Southwest Grill. That leaves Taco Bell standing alone if you want an affordable Mexican fix, unless you want to take your chances with some Jack-in-the-Box tacos. Winner, Taco Bell. But enough about money, it's all about the taste, right? Round 3. The menu. The McDonald's menu is famous worldwide, with some items needing no introduction, like the Big Mac. It's also surprisingly diverse. Burgers are the biggest driver, but they also serve chicken sandwiches, the world-famous McNuggets, and even the Filet-O-Fish, which was initially created to cater to Catholics who didn't eat meat on Friday. There'll usually be something for everyone. And then there's breakfast, which is a whole other side to the menu, offering eggs, pancakes, McMuffins, and those delicious hash browns. It's so popular that Mickey D's even offered all-day breakfast for a while. What about Taco Bell? Taco Bell knows what it's good at and it sticks to it. Classic Tex-Mex flavors. The menu is packed with every version you can imagine of tacos, burritos, quesadillas, as well as Taco Bell originals like Crunch Wraps. But for all the variety you can have here, the options are a little more limited than McDonald's. Most dishes consist of a tortilla or a taco shell, chicken or ground beef, add-ons like lettuce, beans, or rice, and a whole lot of cheese. If you want Taco Bell classic Mexican food, the world is your oyster, but there isn't as much here for differing tastes. However, its newer breakfast menu, featuring early morning versions of burritos and quesadillas, has gotten good reviews from hungry diners. Hash brown stuffed Crunch Wrap, anyone? Winner? McDonald's. But variety is the spice of life, so let's look at the new guys. Round 4. The Specials. McDonald's has a big menu, but they still make time to introduce new items occasionally. However, most of these are usually variations of existing items in recent years. They've had success offering spicy chicken sandwiches or experimenting with boldly flavored new sauces. The days of bold experiments like Fish McBites or the infamous Hula Burger, and with the McRib making occasional cameos, it seems McDonald's wants to concentrate on a streamlined menu rather than big swings. Taco Bell knows what works, but they are not afraid to experiment. One of the most beautiful things about tacos and burritos is that you can put anything in them, and Taco Bell has embraced that spirit. They're constantly rolling out specials and seasonal items that bring people back to the Bell to try new offerings. Their current menu includes a higher-end Cantina chicken menu, offering a slightly lighter alternative, and they recently brought back their beloved Mexican pizza, one of the quirkiest items on the menu. Winner? Taco Bell. But after a meal like that, you're gonna want something sweet. Round 5. Dessert. McDonald's might not be a dessert shop, but it certainly made an impact on those with a sweet tooth. Long gone are the dry McDonaldland cookies they used to offer, replaced with fresh-baked treats. Even if the ice cream machine is never working, there are sweet and creamy shakes, including the Minty Shamrock Shake, another popular limited-time item that rolls around every St. Paddy's Day. But no sweet item is a better seller than the iconic apple pies. One of the best dessert deals out there, even if they were better fried. Taco Bell might have a smaller dessert menu, but it packs a punch. Taco Bell's most famous dessert is the Cinnamon Twists, a low-cost crispy snack dusted with cinnamon sugar inspired by churros. But recently they've been overshadowed by the more indulgent Cinnabon Delights, a hot cinnamon-flavored treat filled with creamy icing. They're an addictive pastry that's gained a big fan base, but they got a long way to go before they can get the fan base of those apple pies. Winner? McDonald's. Is all this brawling making you thirsty? Round 6. Drinks. Drinks aren't usually at the top of anyone's priority list when they visit a fast food place, but both these mega chains have some big surprises. McDonald's has the standard soda fountain, but in the early 2000s they decided to compete with Starbucks and introduce the McCafe line. Joining the simple black coffee is an elaborate of sweet, hot, and frozen drinks that would make a barista do a double take. So if you need a caffeine fix with your Mickey D's, you are covered. But Taco Bell might just have one neon-colored ace up its sleeve. Taco Bell mostly has a standard drink menu, with the addition of a new frozen treat called the Limonada Freeze. But where it stands out is with its two exclusive fountain drink flavors, the brisk Mango Fiesta Iced Tea and the world-famous Mountain Dew Baja Blast. This tropical lime-flavored soda became so popular that it's now available as a can or in energy drinks, but there is literally only one place to get it on tap, and sometimes one item is enough. Winner? Taco Bell. The judges have scored it at 3 each, but let's look at the pocketbook situation. Round 7. Value. Inflation is hitting hard, and that's definitely the case at fast food places. Prices will obviously change by the region, but smaller items like the individual hamburgers and 4-piece McNuggets have nearly doubled in price over the last few years. McDonald's has tried to win back budget-conscious fans by introducing the $5 meal deal for a limited time. This includes a McChicken or a McDouble, plus 4 McNuggets, a small fries, and a drink. It's pretty impressive, but with standard combos with bigger sandwiches quickly approaching the $10 mark, your wallet is taking a hit. And the Bell isn't immune from inflation either. Taco Bell used to be the destination of choice for broke college students, with many small tacos and wraps only going for around $1. Those days are long past, with individual options like the beefy 5-layer burrito now retailing for $4. And if you're going meatless, a bean burrito can still be yours for $1.89. But for those with a big attitude, the Bell has you covered, thanks to the Build Your Own Cravings box, which offers up your choice of 1 specialty item, 1 classic item, 1 side, and 1 drink for only $6, with upgrades available. And that's enough food for 2 or 1 hungry person, we're not judging. Winner, Taco Bell. But let us not forget, the children are our future. Round 8. Family Appeal. There's a reason only one fast food chain was the subject of a John Mulaney comedy bit. Kids love McDonald's. The Happy Meal is by far one of the most iconic kids' meals in the world, and it still comes with toys based on some of the most popular franchises in the world. That being said, the days of McDonald's play places and birthday parties are well over, and most McDonald's today have a far less colorful appearance than they used to, even if kids still do know to chant McDonald's, McDonald's, McDonald's when they pass the Golden Arches. So has Taco Bell picked up the baton? Mexican food is always going to be a trickier sell to kids who are picky eaters, although Taco Bell's version is far from the most challenging to the palate. But in terms of directly trying to appeal to kids, Taco Bell doesn't. They discontinued their kids' meal in 2013, and they don't offer any special promotions or toys. Sorry youngins, this one's for the grown-ups. Winner, McDonald's, by forfeit. But what about the faces of these franchises? Round 9. The Mascots. The McDonaldland mascots are incredibly famous, especially if you're a 90s kid. Who doesn't remember the friendly clown Ronald McDonald? Gentle Giant Grimace, the mischievous Hamburglar, oh, and Mayor McCheese and Birdie the Early Bird. The gang's all here. They even had a video game based on them in 1993. But today, they're not really part of the marketing anymore, largely due to McDonald's decision to try to market less to kids due to public concerns over their Happy Meals being too high in calories. And we know you can hear it, Yo quiero Taco Bell. Maybe the biggest viral sensation in fast food history, the Taco Bell Chihuahua was a marketing icon that kicked off in 1997 and took over the advertising world for a few years. Played by Gidget the Chihuahua, she had a huge role in the chain's massive increase in growth. But you won't see her in ads today. In fact, the marketing campaign only lasted 3 years and was pulled partially due to concerns over cultural appropriation and offensiveness. Winner, a draw by forfeit. So it all comes down to the final category. Round 10. Cultural Impact. Both of these chains are among the most famous in the United States, with Taco Bell being essentially synonymous with Mexican food in many areas, for good or bad. Words like gordita and chalupa were introduced to the public by the chain. By contrast, McDonald's is a brand in and of itself, more famous than any of its individual items. The Golden Arches are one of the most recognizable icons in the marketing world, and it even had a movie based on the man who turned it into an empire, Ray Kroc. That's something that can't be said about any other fast food chain. Taco Bell is a wildly successful fast food chain, but for many people, McDonald's is fast food. Winner, McDonald's. So the Golden Arches reign supreme, but watch out, there's rumors of a sailor man who wants a brawl, and he's just eating his spinach. Oh wait, wrong Popeyes. It's that time again when your local McDonald's puts its famous McRib sandwich on the menu. A magical meal of mushed up mystery meat. An imposter of sorts pretending to be something it's not. The McRib might just be a nutritional nightmare. And sure, it might be a bad actor in a terrible B-movie that arguably should never have been made, but it has history, and that's important. It might even have saved lives. So the next time you find yourself biting into one of these pioneering pieces of peculiar pork, this video should be on your mind. Let's start with the basics though before we get to the mostly unknown genesis of the marvelous McRib. When you're eating food, especially meat products, there's one word that doesn't exactly shout healthy. That word is reconstructed. In short, it means making a foodstuff look like a different foodstuff. What you're getting is a fake, a pretender, an imposter. The McRib is about as far away from being meat-lined bones that have been taken from a pig as what Disney World Space Mountain roller coaster is to actually flying through space. It's a simulation burger, a pseudo-rib, containing large doses of salt, sugar, and saturated fat. It's no coincidence that people who starred in My 600-Pound Life did a lot of their shopping at McDonald's. In high doses, the McRib can cause obesity, America's favorite national problem. It's packed with ungoodness. That's a word we just invented because it fits so well with the McDonald's menu. And if you commit yourself to some cursory research, you can find that McRib ribs are not ribs or even rib meat. They have nothing to do with ribs, they're merely ribby. They are primarily composed of ground pork shoulder. It's just too expensive for a capitalist powerhouse like McDonald's to use all decent quality meat. Don't forget this, it's a matter of great importance today. The McRib was designed not only to trick you but also to save on pennies. So with that in mind, a better name for the McRib would be the McThing. Here's a definition of the McThing. Restructured meat products are commonly manufactured by using lower-valued meat trimmings, reduced in size by comminution, flaking, chunking, grinding, chopping, or slicing. The comminuted meat mixture is mixed with salt and water to extract salt-soluble proteins. It's the proteins that act as the glue to make the thing stick together. But we know that what you're interested in is the lower-valued meat trimmings part. This is generally kept secret from the consumer, so when you get some heart or eye with your hot dog, the package will just say something like meat products. Always be wary of the terrifying vagueness of a meat product. It could be a bull's John Thomas, a sheep's ding-dongs, a chicken's eyeball. If you're getting a meat product, you can almost guarantee it consists of some unsavory animal parts. If you eat a McRib, you could be enjoying the taste of an animal's heart, tripe, or scalded stomach. If you don't know already, tripe comes from the lining of an animal's stomach. It's a delicacy in some places and waste in others. Before the McRib made its first appearance on McDonald's menus in 1981, it was the brainchild of a successful chef. His name was René Arendt, a cook from Luxembourg who ended up working in Chicago with one of the most respected chefs in the world. Yep, a gourmet chef invented the McRib. Go figure. Arendt was first in his class at the renowned Collège Technique Hôtelier de Strasbourg. He could have gone anywhere after that, from restaurants where a bottle of wine costs more than the dishwasher's yearly wage, to your local Five Guys. He did go places too. He made dishes for Queen Elizabeth, the King of Belgium, and the Italian actress Sophia Loren, none of whom you could imagine wolfing down a plate of tripe and vinegar. But then, in the 1970s, Ray Kroc, the man who made McDonald's the global phenomenon it is today, made Arendt an offer he couldn't refuse. When Arendt was offered the job, his initial reply was, "I'm not a hamburger man, I am a chef. We are completely different." But that's exactly what Kroc wanted. Selling the people of the United States waste meat products would look a lot better if the man behind them was an up-and-coming top-shelf chef. Make no mistake, when a new product came out, McDonald's let people know its creator had once cooked for the Queen. So, for more money, Arendt quit working in the kitchens of gourmet chefs and went to work at a place where the red-haired clown seduced kids into happily embracing the promise of adulthood diabetes. When Arendt started in the late 70s, he was trying to come up with a dish to make McDonald's even more popular. The restaurant had gotten incredibly popular over a short period of time. In the US alone, it was serving around 17 million customers every day. But more needed to be done. Arendt knew he needed something that could be made really fast at a low cost. This is why he came up with the Chicken McNugget. It took him and his team another 3 months just to find a suitable source for the ingredients. McNuggets were an instant hit. In fact, soon McDonald's had to construct 3 new processing plants for the hit dish. This is where everyday people would sit on a production line, taking chicken bones out from already processed chickens. When Arendt was asking what was happening to all the other parts of the chicken once they had the meatiest bits picked off, he replied, "From chicken, nothing is lost." This is what he was good at, using every part of the animal and somehow making the final product taste okay. He had help, though, for the science part of the creations. When you're making heavily processed food, you need scientists just as much as you need someone's culinary skills. The scientist in this case was named Roger Mandigo. His name now sits in the Meat Industry Hall of Fame. Yeah, that actually exists. One of the reasons why Mandigo reached such heady heights in the business of murdering animals was because he was a pioneer in the process we told you about, reconstructing meaty things. He once famously explained how he managed to get regular folks to eat mystery meat. Most people would be extremely unhappy if they were served heart or tongue on a plate, but flaked into a restructured product, it loses its identity. Such products as tripe, heart, and scalded stomachs are high in protein, completely edible, wholesome, and nutritious, and most are already used in sausage without objection. Aaron once explained why he and Mandigo started working together on the McRib. There wasn't a system to supply enough chicken, so we had to come up with something to give the other franchises a new product. So the McRib came about because of the shortage of chickens. He said he got the idea when he visited some of the poorer parts of the USA's South, where he said he saw folks barbecuing the cheapest cuts of pork and smothering them with sauce. The McRib was almost immediately a big hit. McDonald's started making even more money in an era where it was basically already printing its own banknotes. But then the McRib craze suddenly stopped. Customers seemed to go off the McRib really quickly. The socio-psychological reason is that the McRib is a niche product. It has a bit of a cult following, but people usually enjoy something different only so many times. They usually go back to beef in the end. Another reason why McDonald's only puts it on the menu every now and again is because pork trimmings can be hard to get your hands on, unlike beef trimmings. And if McDonald's buys lots of hard-to-get pork trimmings, their price starts to shoot up. Selling the McRib as a novelty item solved the problem. McDonald's also created a buzz around the meal, telling folks their special pork dish is back. This doesn't happen in Germany, though, where the McRib is sold all year round. Savages. Avid consumers of the McRib probably don't know there are about 70 ingredients in one 500-calorie McRib. One of the ingredients is the additive azodicarbonamide, aka the yoga mat chemical. It's nicknamed that because it's often used to make foamed plastic things. It's actually used for the bun to keep the bun looking, bunny. Many fast food restaurants use it in their buns. There are plenty of other additives in the McRib, although in Europe and Australia they won't allow companies to use azodicarbonamide as a food additive. Over there, they don't like mixing their yoga mats with their edibles. They say azodicarbonamide might cause respiratory problems such as asthma. When a restaurant has to stack something with ample additives, flavorings, and addictive properties such as sugar, it's because the raw product would taste like hell. Fast food was never just about getting food to customers fast, but more about giving millions and millions of people something cheap that didn't taste too bad. The McRib is to sandwiches what homemade fentanyl is to pure opium. With all that in mind, where do you think something like the McRib would be useful? Answer: on the battlefield. During the Second World War, it wasn't easy to get fresh meat to soldiers, or for that matter, much of the poorer public. Meat was a luxury. This is why another wonder of the mystery meat world really took off. That was the meat product we call Spam. So when talking about the evolution of the McRib, we can go a bit farther back. Then when Monsieur Arend and Mr. Mandigo were helping McDonald's make a killing out of nothing-goes-to-waste pigs. In the 1960s, the Nugget Soldier Center for Research and Development in the U.S. was thinking about how to feed American soldiers when they were on missions. They needed something nutritional but cheap. This is why they came up with MREs, Meals Ready to Eat. They apparently don't taste too bad. On a forum, a former soldier was asked what MREs were like. This was his reply: in all honesty, they taste a lot like cheap canned foods. Think canned spaghetti, Spam, Vienna sausages, etc. If you want the experience tonight, go get a can of spaghetti and meatballs. Eat it cold with some stale saltines. Don't skimp on the Tabasco. Another soldier said the taste is sometimes the last thing you think about when you've been walking all day with a heavy load on your back. He said you simply need the calories. The meals are not supposed to titillate your palate. They're made just to be edible. When it comes to MREs, the nutritional value is important, and that's a good thing because often the parts of the animal that many people don't like to eat, the intestines and the internal organs, pack loads of nutrients. This is why the Natick Soldier Center for Research and Development got in touch with a food production company in Ohio and asked them if they could buy all the unwanted meat mush. They then turned it into something that looked like a burger, and the soldiers might have thought they were eating a regular burger, when in fact they were munching on stuff they probably would throw away if they were butchering an animal at home. Then the center went a step further and asked the meatpacking factories to turn the mush into nice shapes to make the mystery meat look more presentable. Hey, presto! The military soon started saving a ton of cash, and soldiers thought they were getting burgers, albeit ones that came in a can or a bag. By the 1970s, soldiers were getting reconstructed lamb chops, pork chops, veal steaks, and beef steaks. So when commercial entities started seeing imposter meat products being made by the Army, From what used to be waste, they started doing the same. All they had to do was make the thing look real and add so many additives, preservatives, and flavorings that it lasted a long time and tasted alright. McDonald's copied the Army's recipe almost to a T. Mascot admitted to this, saying the military allowed us to use the processes they developed. This is why we can say the U.S. Army actually pioneered the McRib. Army rations even include them now, as part of what one journalist jokingly said was the McRib Industrial Complex. A journalist writing for U.S. Veterans magazine got his hands on one, although it was described on the packet as rib-shaped barbecue-flavored pork patty. He opened it up and had a taste. His short review went like this. The pebbly textured meat is caramel brown and crossed by 4 raised bones. Not unappealing, except if you peek in the package. The meat juice is a bizarrely bright yellowish orange. I quickly tilt the pouch to keep from splashing out. I slice off an end with a knife and a fork. It's porky and slightly smoky, although there is a tinny aftertaste, probably from some of the preservatives used to keep it fresh so long. He proceeded to embellish the strange dish with relish and wrote, "Not bad. Scatter a couple of onion slices and pickles on top, and the whole thing would be pretty damn close to a McRib." So, the next time you bite into a McRib, just remember that you're doing what soldiers did in the deserts of Afghanistan and the jungles of Southeast Asia. As for why you'd pay good money for this dish of deviance in the safety of your hometown, well, you tell us why you do something so bloody reckless. May 28, 2021. A McDonald's chicken nugget appears on eBay. The person who listed it, Polizna, starts the bidding at a paltry 99 cents. Let's face it, who'd even pay that? For 2 days, no one bids, but then someone puts down $14,969. Something happens. We don't know what. The universe goes mad, that's for sure, and the piece of junk food sells for $999,997. We're not kidding you. The story is every bit real. Today we'll explore such madness in all its glory, but let's first talk about this very expensive bit of chicken. 184 people bid on the nugget, so it had to be something special. First of all, it came as part of a BTS combo meal. The meal, it seems, was very popular. That might not mean much to some of you, so we should tell you that BTS is a South Korean boy band belonging to the K-pop genre. Still, even if you aren't crazy about this outfit of dubious musicians, you'd likely just buy the meal yourself rather than pay $100,000 for a stale piece of chicken. But that wasn't everything. The nugget apparently looked like a character from the online multiplayer video game Among Us. Okay, so we'll admit that there is some resemblance. But then a pulled tooth also looks a bit like the character, or so does a stone. Or probably about 50 things you have sitting around your house. How come this chicken nugget went for more money than most people will ever have in their bank account? Well, when it was listed, the seller wrote, "Item will be frozen and then air sealed to ensure freshness with secure shipping method. This food product has an average expiration of about 14 days and will be delivered prior to expiration." He also wrote, "I have Szechuan, and at buyer's request will ship some with the nugget." With that in mind, was the buyer thinking about eating it? And if so, was this nugget any tastier than other nuggets on the market that you can buy for a handful of coins? We really can't figure out why someone would spend all that money on the thing. It's not as if it's like modern art and it will sell for more money in the future. The person who bought the nugget will very likely be stuck with the nugget, and anyway, we reckon people will have already been making their own imposter nuggets and saying it's the real one. It seems the public isn't sure why that thing was sold for that much cash. On a BBC Online forum, someone wrote, "I love Among Us, but still, so much for a food item shaped like a character? It wasn't even painted like one." Another person wrote, "Whoa, seems silly to spend that much money on a chicken nugget. Sheesh." A person with the username Izzy simply said, "Pure stupid that." Maybe some of you guys know the answer to this mystery of the world's most expensive chicken nugget. The seller obviously had no idea why he got so much money, saying in an interview, "I had figured it'd get somewhere around $50, but nothing like this." The thing is, if you think this is an isolated case, you are wrong. Such madness in the universe has happened before, and will likely happen again. In 2016, someone bid on a big bottle of McDonald's Big Mac sauce. It ended up going for £65,900, which is around $100,000. The cash in this case didn't go back to McDonald's, but to its Ronald McDonald House Charities. But it turned out that the bid was a hoax. Still, 40 bids were over 50,000, so there was plenty of people ready to spend big. You can't actually walk into one of McDonald's restaurants and buy a bottle of that so-called secret sauce, so some folks were willing to pay a lot to get a bottle. We have no idea why, but we do know that a bottle of the stuff was auctioned off in Australia in 2015 for 23,000 Australian dollars. And if you think that's crazy, we will now prove to you that there are people willing to pay mega bucks for stuff you probably wouldn't buy if it was offered you for a solitary dollar. Imagine waking up in the morning to an absolute mess and then selling your mess. Sounds impossible, right? It's not. A British artist named Tracy Amin said her mess was actually an installation. Basically, she sold her unmade bed and a load of her stuff at the side of it, including cigarette packs, KY gel, tissues, a full ashtray, a pair of shabby slippers, and empty vodka bottles. Seriously, that was it. There was nothing fancy such as hidden diamonds stuck to the bottles. She called the work My Bed and said she hoped it would give people a portrait of a young woman. She said she hoped the piece would end up in a museum, but a German collector stepped in and paid $4.1 million. He said, "I always admired the honesty of Tracy, and I bought my bed because it's a metaphor for life, where troubles begin and logics die." Just so you know, the art world took this seriously. The curator, Elena Kripa, called the installation an incredibly vital piece of art, showing how people lived in the 90s during the Britpop era. She said, "I think the status of the work has changed historically, but certainly hasn't changed in terms of the impact of the piece." With that in mind, we'd like to ask you how much you'd pay for a sandwich. A half-eaten one at that. A woman in the US named Diana Doiser shocked the world when she collected $28,000 for just that. A slightly nibbled grilled cheese. It was no ordinary grilled cheese though. She said the toast marks formed the picture of the Virgin Mary. She first put it on eBay and politely asked people to take it seriously. You see, she said the sandwich had brought her luck over the years that she had kept it. She wrote, "I made this sandwich 10 years ago. When I took a bite out of it, I saw a face looking up at me. It was Virgin Mary staring back at me. I was in total shock." She was even more shocked when she said her endless run of fortune culminated with a casino win of $70,000. So it just made sense that if anyone should take it off her hands, they would no doubt experience a similar windfall. She was sure God had given her a sign. So she told prospective buyers, "I would like all bidders to know that this item is not intended for consumption." Strange, but this is stranger. The actress Scarlett Johansson appeared on The Tonight Show a few years back, and while she was being interviewed, she grabbed a tissue and relieved herself of some snot. She kept that tissue and later stuck it on eBay, saying she'd give the money to charity if anyone wanted to buy it. Someone did, and they paid a staggering $5,300. It gets worse. In 2005, the news media reported that a guy named Wade Jones had something special to sell. He said he'd been at an Elvis Presley concert back in 1977, and he'd seen Elvis drinking water from a plastic cup. After the star put the cup down, a cop picked it up and handed it to the young fan. For years, he kept the cup at home, but then one day he decided it was time to sell. He put it on eBay saying, "You can buy the water, but I want to keep the cup." Jones said one of his friends told him about the cheese sandwich auction, so he thought it was a good time to sell the water. He wrote on eBay, "I promise this thing is 100% legitimate." As the saying goes, there's one born every minute. Jones sold the Elvis water for a whopping $455. And if you think you're going to drink that water, we think it'd be best to use special ice cubes. Such things exist. There's a company in the USA called Glace Luxury Ice that sells luxury ice cubes. Sure, they're just made out of water, but they say it's purified water. 50 of the cubes will set you back $325, which works out to $6.50 per cube. Add a few of those to the Elvis water and you have a very expensive drink. Another bit of Elvis we found that fetched a high price was some of his hair. In 2002, a collector paid a massive $115,000 for a jar of his hair. The thing is, it sold without any DNA evidence, saying it definitely came from the king of rock and roll. If you're wondering how much you could sell a single strand of hair for, someone paid $3,000 for one piece of JFK's hair. A strand of Abraham Lincoln's hair was also sold on eBay, but only for $811. Still, that's good money, seeing as the hair was likely pulled out of the seller's friend's head. Listen carefully right now, because this next one might teach you how to make a good bit of cash in the future. Imagine you had a jar in your kitchen, and you made that jar look kinda unique. Imagine after that, you called it a ghost jar. And now imagine that some fool on the planet would be willing to spend a ton of cash on it. It happened. In 2003, a guy in the US put such a jar on eBay and told people it was the real deal. He said whoever the buyer might be, they should be careful to keep the jar closed lest the ghoul escapes and causes all kind of mayhem. This is what he said happened when he found the jar. "While getting the jars out of the ground, I dropped one and it broke. A black mist or something seeped out of it. I should have known something was wrong right then and there and covered the find back up, but being young and foolish, I didn't." He started the bidding at $99, and it seems the final bid was $50,922. That person might not have paid up, but we're not exactly sure since news stories are conflicting. It seems some people were putting down hoax bids, which annoyed the owner of the jar. He later wrote, "Due to the high amount of emails I've received concerning this item, I'm going to try to answer some of your questions here. Number 1, no, this is not a hoax. It is real. Yes, I have tried reburying it, but it did not work. It only made the black thing more active until I dug it back up. This next ghostly item definitely did sell, so don't give up looking around your house for useless things you can turn into lots of money. The story starts with a woman in the US trying to make her young son feel better. The lad had been suffering a bit because he'd been seeing the ghost of his grandpa. The mother then told the kid she'd put his grandfather's old cane on eBay, and once it was sold, the ghost would follow the cane to the new owner. The woman wrote on the post, "I would like to ask you to write a letter after you've received the cane and the ghost to my son, letting him know that he's there with you and you're getting along great." Okay, so what would someone pay for a ghost stick? The answer? $65,000. It was actually bought by the same people that bought the cheese sandwich. They said that these kinds of things are a little bit of American history. Although, isn't the fact that they bought them the only reason they've become history? These same people bought a Dorito chip on eBay for $1,209 after it was advertised as something that looked just like a giant hat that the Pope wears. The buyer said, "We believe that this chip, like the Virgin Mary grilled cheese sandwich, is another perfect example of American pop culture." In all honesty, the chip's resemblance to the mitre is phenomenal. If you're in need of cash, maybe it's time you started trying to find food that looks like things. Or you could do what a woman in the US did in 2009. 36-year-old LaVon Drummond was pregnant and she was flat out broke, so she put something unique on eBay. She said someone could buy the right to name her baby. Someone bid $15,000, but then eBay shut it down because there was no actual item. She tried again, and someone tried to bid $510.99, but eBay did the same again. It seems she just couldn't make the deal, although there were people ready to pay to name that kid. She said, "I'm still praying that someone out there will take mercy and make a huge difference for my family. The kid will be 12 now." Now we come to the best ones by far. We like to think for a second and come up with a number for how much you'd be willing to pay for absolutely nothing. $1? $20? A few thousand? Surely nothing is worth at least $500. In 2021, NPR reported that the artist named Salvatore Garau had sold his latest invisible sculpture. In an interview, he explained just what the collector got for his money. The vacuum is nothing more than a space full of energy, and even if we empty it and there is nothing left, according to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, that nothing has a weight. Therefore, it has energy that is condensed and transformed into particles, that is, into us. We trust you now understand why this piece was so valuable. Garau got $18,000 for it, which he said was a good deal since it could be displayed in any kind of light. Invisible art is almost as good as thin air. You can't get enough quality thin air. A few years ago, people were bidding as much as $60,000 for a bag of air taken at Kanye West concerts. We don't think you can get any more ridiculous than that. So, we'll end the show here. Two guys who haven't seen each other for some time are driving in a car on their way to a Bible meeting. One of them, who's recently returned from a trip around Europe, says to the other, "You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?" The other man looks perplexed. Surely it's just a quarter pounder, he thinks. His friend explains that in Europe they use the metric system, so a quarter of a pound doesn't really mean much. In France, he says they call it a royale with cheese. He further surprises his good buddy by informing him that in France, a burger weighing roughly 113 grams is a damn tasty burger. Somehow a better burger than what's served in the McDonald's restaurant they frequent in North Hollywood. The question is, why? Why do Europeans get a better standard of McDonald's than Americans? After all, the fast food burger, the cornerstone of any nutritious diet, was invented in the US. It just wouldn't seem right for Europeans to get a burger of a higher standard. Well, the answer might surprise you. Let's start with a few McDonald's facts, just so you know how such a great American institution made its way across the pond. The first restaurant was opened in 1940 in San Bernardino, California. That was basically a hamburger stand, but a few years later, the owners Richard and Maurice McDonald got the idea to create a system in which food could be made and served fast. They called it their Speedy Service System, and they had a mascot called Speedy to go with it. That clown that a good chunk of the world is familiar with, known as Ronald McDonald, didn't appear until 1965, and by that time the company had been franchised and McDonald's restaurants were popping up all over the US. By 1968, there were 1,000 franchises, and in 1970 the company opened its first place outside of the US and Canada, which was in Costa Rica. A year later, a branch was opened in Japan, quickly followed by entries into the European and Australian markets. What the company attempted to do was make the food pretty much the same everywhere. With McDonald's, the idea was you always knew what you were getting wherever you went. You'll see today that this hasn't always been the case, but the same meals for the most part are featured on the menus all over the world. In 1975, if you were to order a Filet-O-Fish or a quarter pounder or an Egg McMuffin in Stockholm, those dishes should have tasted the same as they would have in Boise, Idaho. So if you're one of the 68 million folks in 119 countries that every day hands over his cash for a burger washed down with a tasty beverage, you should be getting what someone on the other side of the world is getting. We can tell you that our wayfaring staff at the infographic show have guiltily wolfed down a McDonald's meal in countries far and wide, and we can say the same taste experience that McDonald's wants people to have works. But there are some differences. And we're not just talking about meals especially devised for the tastes of certain cultures. For instance, you can get a McFalafel sandwich in Egypt, or a McArabia sandwich in Bahrain, or a bulgogi burger in South Korea. But you can also get the standard fare. Okay, so first of all, just so you know we aren't making this up, the web is full of Americans asking the question, why on earth does McDonald's taste so much better in Europe, or even in Australia or New Zealand? Americans, it seems, are getting a raw deal when it comes to one of their most famous exports. The first thing we should talk about is mind over matter. If, for instance, you're eating your McDonald's in a very beautiful building, what you eat might just taste better. Trust us, a steak served on fine china plate will taste better than a steak served in an ashtray. On the outskirts of Rome, you can visit the McDonald's Museum restaurant, a place where you can chow down on fine pastries and burgers next to ancient ruins. In Porto, Portugal, you can eat under chandeliers in a quite exquisite building. In Ireland, there's a restaurant situated in a 19th century town hall. And on the Rue Saint-Lazare in Paris, you can have croissants and coffee inside a building that looks like something out of a children's fantasy book. Okay, so some restaurants might serve some quality extras, but even if you're getting a standard Chicken McNuggets meal, it's bound to taste better when you're eating it in a historic building. It's also very likely that the meal served in this building is made with more care and attention rather than your Big Mac coming to you looking like it's been in a terrible accident and subsequently reconstituted by a drunk surgeon. Nonetheless, for the most part, McDonald's restaurants the world over look pretty similar. In the UK, there are around 1,300 branches and most of them wouldn't look out of place in the US, but something they do over there in the UK might make a meal taste a little bit better. It's all about standards, something the US seems to have a deficit in the fast food world. We need to talk about something called dimethylpolysiloxane, a chemical Americans have been unknowingly eating for decades. They might not have known this because it's kind of in the small print on the McDonald's website. It's there if you look closely, with McDonald's saying the chemical stops oil splatter. This is one reason it's found in French fries and Chicken McNuggets as well as hash browns. It's not added directly to the food, but it gets in there via the cooking oil. We're not quite sure just how bad of a thing dimethylpolysiloxane is. When the Chicago Tribune contacted McDonald's about it, the newspaper received no reply. As it stands, the EU says it doesn't have harmful effects on the environment, but still, the UK won't allow it in their fries. Perhaps one positive thing about the chemical, which is a kind of silicone, is it promotes hair growth. That's what some scientists in Japan said anyway. Maybe if you've been eating McDonald's French fries your entire life, you won't go bald. Maybe. The scientists injected the chemical in their test subjects rather than made them eat it. Another place you'll find this chemical other than your fries is on condoms, where it acts as a lubricant. We could make a lewd joke about putting things in your mouth, but in the interests of decorum and monetization, we'll leave it there. What we will say, though, is some countries don't think dimethylpolysiloxane is a suitable or even safe accompaniment to a bit of deep-fried potato. For this reason, the British won't allow the chemical in their French fries. In fact, when you look at all the ingredients that go into US fries, it adds up to quite a lot more than goes into UK fries, 3 times as much. Someone asked McDonald's on its own website why this is, but the answer was very vague, with the company saying every country has its own regulations. The EU, in fact, is quite a bit stricter than the US when it comes to what can be put in your food. In conclusion, fries in Europe might just be a bit more wholesome and a tad more potato-y. There's also the fact that in some European countries you can get variations of fries, and some of them actually taste like they contain lots of potato. You'll find big French fries or fried potato wedges in some countries, and they might be served up with a bunch of different sauces, including cheese sauce with bacon. Sweden went one step further. Over there, you can order flat fries with a truffle-based mayo. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a step up from the lube-imbued American fry. Now let's talk about beef. On its US website, McDonald's admits that it uses growth hormones on its cattle, so the meat you eat has less fat. This goes into the cow feed, so it isn't directly shot into the animal. The company says this is not unusual at all. But when we went to the McDonald's UK website, there was a declaration that no hormones are used on the cattle. You can read this statement on the McDonald's UK website. The use of hormonal growth promoters for cows is banned in the UK and the rest of the European Union. The beef used across our menu is 100% British and Irish and comes from farms accredited by a National Farm Assurance Scheme. Okay, so if the UK is saying this, obviously proudly saying it as a means to win over its base of burger eaters, What does that say about the growth hormones in cows? If it's banned, is it bad? This might just be an ethical concern, but Europe goes a step further with its beef. You'll have to ask what the cattle have been dining on. In 2020, McDonald's boasted about a new burger that was made from grass-fed cattle, but that was in Australia. Again, if that's a good thing, then a cow that doesn't get its regular fix of rolling meadow might not taste as good. In 2013, NPR wrote an article about how burgers were made from McDonald's in France. That article stated that all the meat was locally sourced and that all the cattle was grass-fed, compared to the US where the cows had to make do with less superior corn. French cattle also had to have a passport detailing where each cow was born, where it grew up, and where it was slaughtered. All this, according to the writer, made for a much tastier burger than Americans were getting. The European Union is also not cool with how Americans treat their chickens, or we should say, some companies that mass-produce chicken. The process of washing chickens in a chlorine bath to disinfect the bird is pretty much outlawed in the EU, which may explain why a chicken sandwich in Europe tastes a little better than a chicken sandwich in an American McDonald's. The USA Poultry and Egg Export Council didn't much like the snub from Europe and came out and said there's nothing unsafe about those chicken baths. It seems right now in Europe, chlorinated chicken is still a big no-no. Although in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been busy trying to cozy up to the States and reverse the ban. He says there's no evidence that washing the birds in disinfectant is dangerous for the consumer, but the EU has stood its ground, stating the process leads to horribly crowded abattoirs. Is meat that hasn't taken a posthumous bath in chemicals any less tasty? Well, that's not an easy question to answer. Maybe you just feel better knowing the dead animal in your sandwich, Frankenbirds to animal activists, didn't suffer as much. Saying that, according to the World Animal Protection Organization, fast food joints in Europe aren't exactly taking chicken welfare seriously. Then there's the does size matter debate. In the US, the Big Mac is just a little bit bigger than it is in the UK. If you have more quantity though, does that mean the quality is affected? Let's also remember that drinks are bigger in the US. The large is larger than in the European countries, as are the medium and small sizes. That might sound like a good thing to American diners that would happily mainline a 30-ounce Coke, but again you have to ask, does quantity affect quality? Would you sacrifice some soda or a bit of burger to know you're not eating chicken that was once soda formed and depressed it longed for its big day in the abattoir? So the meat and the fries might taste a little bit different because of where the food is sourced and what's added to it. There are more reasons why Europe's McDonald's are better. For one thing, all over Europe you can get a beer with your burger. In Belgium, you can order a beer with your Belgo burger, a sandwich garnished with roasted onions and smattered with cocktail sauce and Maredsous cheese. Let's face it, the American cheese slice is not the finest tasting cheese in the world. In parts of Scandinavia, you can get potato tots filled with smoked cheese and spicy chili. In Greece, you can opt to change the regular cheese and have creamy yogurt on your burger, and you can change the bun for a pita bread. Come on, who in the US wouldn't want to try one of those? You could also get tzatziki wraps in countries all over Europe, which is similar to the Greek wrap. They come with vegetables and beef or chicken and taste very fresh compared to regular burgers. They contain fewer calories too, but for some reason they've never made it to the US. We guess test audiences in the US have never taken to them, even though sales surged in Europe when McDonald's introduced a healthier menu there. In France, you can visit a McCafe. In one of those places you might not always hear, "Do you want fries with that?" But they might ask if you feel like a chocolate croissant straight out of the oven, or perhaps a couple of colorful macarons. As for food for vegetarians, in 2020 McDonald's said it would start rolling out a McPlant burger in various countries around the world. But right now and in the past, options have been very limited for vegetarians. Not in Finland though. In that country, they've had quarter-pound El Veggie burgers since 2018, and it's been selling like hotcakes. And let's talk about breakfast. You already know you can get croissants in France, but all over Europe you can find much better breakfast meals than you can find in the US. Let's face it, the traditional McMuffin doesn't taste much like a muffin, and eating McDonald's bagels is like chewing on a sock filled with ketchup. Over in the UK, at the place they sometimes called Mackie D's, you can have a bacon sourdough roll for breakfast, and it's actually quite good. The bread tastes like bread. The bacon is bacon. Those McMuffin meals sometimes taste like airplane food or something a spaceman might eat. But the British rolls actually taste fresh, as if they were made by your mom. In 2019, some discerning Brits voted that McDonald's roll the best breakfast sandwich in the city high street. Well, at least according to one taste test which pitted the roll against 5 other popular breakfast sandwiches. So there you go, it seems McDonald's in Europe offers many more choices and often you can eat your meal in very nice surroundings. There are more laws as to what goes inside your meal, which makes for better quality meat and fewer chemicals. That's why Europe wins.
The 4th of July has just passed, a celebration of American independence, and also a day on which copious amounts of beef patties are consumed in the United States. A lesser-known celebration comes on May 28th, a day known as National Hamburger Day. While it may seem slightly over the top to some people that Americans would dedicate a day to a sandwich, the US's love of the hamburger shouldn't be underestimated. It's reported that 50 billion burgers are eaten a year in the US, which means the average American eats 3 burgers a week. According to one statistic, the cities of Seattle, Philadelphia, and Boston are the domains of the country's biggest burger devourers, with burgers in the US accounting for 40% of all sandwiches sold. As for which fast food restaurant wins the battle of the burger? Today we'll find out in this episode of the infographic show, McDonald's versus Burger King. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. Let us start by looking at one of capitalism's most controversial success stories, McDonald's. The story begins in San Bernardino, California, 1940, when the McDonald brothers Richard and Maurice opened their first restaurant. The brothers were quick to realize there was a niche in the restaurant business for quickly served meals. To achieve this, they created the Speedy Service System, which helped them make burgers at a rapid rate. The fast food industry was born. It wasn't until sales-minded Ray Kroc got in on the act in 1955 that McDonald's expanded across the nation, with Kroc eventually buying the brothers out. He'd sold 1 million burgers by 1958, each costing around 15 cents. In just 10 years, Kroc helped expand the McDonald's empire to 700 branches throughout the US. Burger King wasn't far behind. After seeing the success of burgers served as fast food, the Florida business pairing of Keith Kramer and his wife's uncle Matthew Burns got the idea to create an Insta-broiler. The two opened restaurants in the mid-50s called Insta Burger Kings, and the company was later bought by franchisees James McLemore and David R. Edgerton. The name was changed to Burger King, and there were 250 Burger Kings in the US by the time it was sold to the Pillsbury Company in 1967. Head to head, there is no doubt that in terms of quantity, McDonald's outguns Burger King in every way. We'll come to quality later. As of January 2017, there were 36,899 McDonald's restaurants in over 100 countries, serving around 69 million customers daily and employing over 375,000 people. In the US alone, there are over 14,000 McDonald's restaurants, making it the second biggest chain in the US. Its revenue for 2016 was over $24 billion, ahead of restaurant chain giants Starbucks and Subway. Burger King was in 4th place. Subway, by the way, has the biggest global reach of all fast food giants, with a total of 44,717 restaurants worldwide. McDonald's is in 2nd place, with Starbucks 3rd at 25,085 global outlets and KFC 4th at 20,604 outlets. By comparison, Burger King has around 15,000 locations worldwide, located in 98 countries. It serves 11 million people per day globally and employs 34,248 people. Burger King's revenue for 2016 was just over $4 billion. If we look at output, McDonald's is the busier of the two restaurants. In total, McDonald's has sold over 300 billion burgers, with Americans consuming over 1 billion pounds of beef in a year at the restaurant. This is equal to about 5.5 million heads of cattle. While McDonald's doesn't release its sales figures for each product, most pundits believe its Big Mac to be its most popular burger. It's been said about 550 million of these double-decker sandwiches are sold every year. Fries are also in demand, with an estimated 9 million pounds of McDonald's fries sold every day. Feeding millions of people daily means maintaining huge stocks and relying on vast amounts of imports. McDonald's is currently the biggest buyer of beef, pork, potatoes, lettuce, and tomatoes in the world, and the second biggest purchaser of chicken after KFC. It also sells over 1 billion cups of coffee each year, with half that amount being sold in the US alone. Again, there are no numbers released by the restaurant, but it's thought Burger King's best-selling item over the years has been its iconic Whopper. This could be changing, with reports surfacing in 2016 that the BK hot dog has become its best-selling item since its introduction. In its bid to catch up to McDonald's, Burger King has introduced a slew of new items over the years, although not all items have gone down too well with customers. One of the latest moves to sway customers happened in New York City when one franchise applied for a liquor license. Burger King is reportedly looking to expand the booze with a burger option in more locations. Still, Burger King's individual restaurants are set said to earn only half as much as a McDonald's outlet. The average McDonald's restaurant in the US in 2014 grossed around $2.6 million in revenue compared to $1.2 million in sales on average for a Burger King restaurant. Pundits put this down to more marketing dollars and faster service times, as well as McDonald's having more choice for kids and breakfast seekers. McDonald's gets it right in terms of quantity, but what about quality? Opinions differ regarding who has the best burger. In 2016, Business Insider pitted McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's signature burgers up against each other, with the result favoring the Big Mac over the Whopper and Wendy's Dave's single burger. The same year, a BuzzFeed article stated that Burger King had much tastier burgers, calling McDonald's sandwiches tasteless. It's horses for courses, as the saying goes, although we probably shouldn't speak about horses when talking about burgers. It seems in general Americans prefer burgers from other chains in spite of what sales figures show us. A 2017 Harris poll put Virginia-based burger company Five Guys Burgers and Fries in the top spot for America's best burger, with the next 4 places going to In-N-Out Burger, Shake Shack, Wendy's, and Culver's. Burger King didn't even get into the top 10 list, while McDonald's came in 7th place. Given all the negative press surrounding the fast food industry and its impact on health and the environment, one way to get ahead of your competitor would surely be to turn into a more reputable kind of restaurant. When we compare the Big Mac with the Whopper, the latter could be said to be the less healthy choice. The Big Mac has 530 calories and 27 grams of fat, compared to 630 calories and 38 grams of fat in the Whopper. One academic actually wrote a paper on the health differences of the two restaurants, taking into account all similar sandwich items. His conclusion was that there was no significant difference in the amount of calories in McDonald's than in Burger King sandwiches, and so consumers shouldn't bother to stress over which restaurant is healthier. If, however, you just don't give a damn, you might order the 770-calorie McDonald's double quarter pounder with cheese or the triple Whopper that contains a staggering 1,020 calories. Both these burgers can't compare with Hardee's 2/3 pound monster thick burger, which contains 1,290 calories, or about half the calories a man needs each day to maintain a healthy diet. Add to that a 750 plus calorie large shake and a 500 calorie bag of fries, and it's easy to see why the burger-loving Americans are living through an obesity pandemic. Regarding environmental issues, where should you eat if you are looking for a more ethical burger? The United Nations Environmental Program has called beef a climate-harmful meat, a product which basically is the foundation of these two restaurants. In terms of sustainability, a 2016 report from the Harvard Business School said McDonald's had made great strides in making itself a more sustainable enterprise, while the report also said Burger King had failed egregiously to do just that. McDonald's has also made more headway than Burger King in lessening antibiotics use for its meat products, according to reports. As for who was the better employer, well, it's thought on average McDonald's pays a fraction more to its employees than Burger King, but it's a negligible amount. In response to American workers demanding a $15 an hour minimum wage, former McDonald's CEO Ed Renzi was less than sympathetic, saying that the solution to such protests was to replace workers with robots. Burger King co-founder David Edgerton told Time magazine it wouldn't happen, or if it did, it would be the end of the small, cheap hamburger. We're talking about a lot of workers too. According to McDonald's own statistics, 1 in every 8 workers in the US has worked in one of its restaurants at some point in time. On a lighter note, Burger King once asked McDonald's to come together for World Peace Day and create the McWhopper. McDonald's CEO Steve Easterbrook rebuffed the peace offer, stating, "We love the intention, but think our brands could do something bigger to make a difference." In conclusion, it seems Burger King will remain playing catch-up, given that other than Santa Claus, Ronald McDonald is the most recognizable fictional icon to US children.
Tonight is the night. You pulled out all the stops, rented a tuxedo, polished your charm, and chosen the most luxurious destination for a romantic evening. As you pull up under the glowing arches, your date stares at the McDonald's sign across the parking lot and says, "Wow, I didn't know you thought I was that special." Oh, but they are. You guide them to a booth, sticky, wobbly, and looking like it's been through several unsanctioned food fights. Then, brimming with confidence, you approach the counter. 2 number 2s, please. Oh, and can I get both of them without onions? The first one, no pickles? No, says the McDonald's cashier. You'll take your food however our minimum wage employees decide to make it. You nod solemnly, handing over your $42.66 for 2 burgers, 2 medium fries, and 2 medium drinks. The fries are half crumbs left over from batches made 5 days ago. The burgers are freezer-burnt slivers of meat, as thick as a microscope slide. But your date is impressed. As they take a sip of their drink, they grin. Tastes exactly like the disinfectant they cleaned the machine with. Delicious. It's a good date, and it's financially ruined you. But why is fast food so expensive nowadays? The reason why is not what you're expecting, and it is changing the dining habits of Americans for the first time in 60 years. Find out the truth in today's episode of The Infographic Show. Okay, let's get straight to the facts. The average price of a Big Mac is $5.29. A Whopper costs about $7.60 unless you're near Infographics HQ, where it climbs to $7.99. Of course, prices aren't the same everywhere. A lot depends on things like how far your local spot is from a distribution center. The farther your fries have to travel, the more gas it takes them to get there, and that extra cost ends up in your meal. It also affects the availability of products, which is why you won't find a glass Coke in places like Waterton, New York. The heavy glass costs much more to ship than plastic. Another factor affecting price is demographics. If you live in a ritzy area, then the companies figure you're willing to cough up a little extra for the same burger that they serve everywhere else. We checked out a Burger King near the beach in Manhattan Beach, Los Angeles. Even though it's just 10 miles from our HQ, the Whopper there costs a full $1 more. Meanwhile, over in Compton, that same Whopper was $1 cheaper. So price point difference is obvious. At the location near the beach, you're paying for the SoCal glamour. But everyone knows that the Whopper isn't enough. You need to combo it to make it a full meal, adding a side of day-old medium French fries and a medium drink that is suspiciously watered down and maybe flavored with a hint of cleaning solution from the soda machine. And now you're looking at a Whopper meal for $13.98 in a rougher neighborhood, or $14.49 if you're lucky enough to live near the beach. Back in 2018, though, that same meal would have cost you a grand total of $6.78 if you upgraded from small to medium, give or take $1 depending on your location. Ask around what's causing fast food prices to skyrocket, and you'll get two common answers: inflation due to COVID-19 and workers asking for better pay in minimum wage jobs. Spend even a few minutes watching the news and you'll hear plenty of dire warnings about higher minimum wage initiatives supposedly making food prices skyrocket. Fat Brand's founder and former CEO of Fatburger, Andrew Weiderhorn, famously appeared on Fox News to warn that a $20 minimum wage bill would mean consumers would have to end up making the difference with the higher costs. Fast forward to 2024, and Andrew Weiderhorn found himself in hot water, indicted on federal charges for allegedly stealing $47 million from his own company through shareholder loans. Just to put that into perspective, that $47 million could have covered the annual salaries of around 1,100 employees earning $20 minimum wage. Fatburger had 4,000 employees back in 2017. So, while Weiderhorn argued that the higher wages would force food prices up because someone's going to pay for it, he was allegedly pocketing enough money to cover 25% of those salaries at the proposed new wage. Across Europe, the average salaries for McDonald's employees range between $17 and $21 an hour. A Big Mac, meanwhile, costs $6.77. That's over $1 more than in the US. But keep in mind, there's going to be a regional cost fluctuation for a variety of factors, including import-export costs and shipping of ingredients. In Denmark, McDonald's employees make on average $22 an hour, and their Big Macs are $5.69, cheaper than American Big Macs. Oh, and that's not it, because what American CEOs don't want you to know is that McDonald's employees also get 6 weeks of vacation a year. Now, to be fair, Denmark's fast food employees are mostly part-time, according to 3F, the union that represents them. But that doesn't mean the restaurants themselves aren't running full-time operations, just like in the US. So any argument that it's only part-time work to avoid implementing a similar minimum wage here is basically just a distraction. We checked the hours of operations for 3 McDonald's locations in Copenhagen, Denmark's capital. One location is open from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. or 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. depending on the day. The second runs from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. And the third was open also from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. or 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. depending on the day. Some McDonald's in America are open 24 hours, but most operate from 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. So on average, restaurants in both nations are open the same amount of hours and thus have similar wage cost totals even if most employees are part-time. Denmark employees also have extra pay when they have to work at what are considered off-hour shifts. This means workers who have to work late or on the weekend earn additional pay on top of their normal wage. If your mind isn't blown yet, holidays are paid at double the rate, and there's normal overtime like everywhere else. Oh, and if you're 21 or older, you can also get a pension plan from McDonald's. Also, let's go back to those 6 weeks of vacation a year. In Denmark, it's federal law that all employees must receive 5 weeks of paid vacation a year. Denmark's 3F union negotiated with McDonald's for 6 weeks of paid vacation instead. Now, if you Google how many vacation or PTO days a year McDonald's gives in the US, you'll get a figure as high as 25. Except that is being skewed by benefits of corporate employees, If you're working behind the counter, you can expect 0 paid time off or as much as 10 days, depending on how long you've been at the company. At this point, some might bring up Denmark's higher tax rates, and they would be right. The average tax rate in Denmark is about 36%, compared to roughly 15% in the US. But those taxes come with some serious perks. Danish citizens get most of their doctor visits and treatment free of charge. And then there's free hospital stays, free nursing care for the elderly or disabled, and free dental care until the age of 22. And even then, many treatments receive reimbursement from the state. Danish citizens also get free schooling, including university, state pension, and even childcare. Meanwhile, in the US, things are a bit more complicated. If you don't have health insurance, you're basically out of luck, and even if you do, there's no guarantee your insurance company could still deny treatment for all sorts of reasons, with the primary one being that they're not exactly fans of losing money. Still not convinced minimum wage has nothing to do with high fast food prices? There's been numerous studies conducted on the impact of minimum wage on food prices. One study by the USDA investigated the correlation between increases in minimum wage and the effect on food prices. What it found was that every 50-cent raise would increase food prices by less than 1% on average at most stores and around 1% in restaurants. Back when Seattle raised minimum wage to $13 an hour in the mid-2010s, pundits claimed it would skyrocket the price of food, with the cost passed directly on to the consumer. However, a University of Washington study concluded that there was no effect on food prices by Seattle's wage hike. Study after study confirms these results. Minimum wage increases have a negligible impact on food prices. But let's talk about another factor that might be driving up food prices: CEO salaries. In 2016, CEOs earned on average 271 times what the average worker earned. Today, that number has climbed to over 290 times. This marks the largest and fastest rise in average CEO compensation in modern history. Per the Economic Policy Institute, which studied CEO compensation, exorbitant CEO pay is a major contributor to rising inequality that we could safely do away with. CEOs are getting more because of their power to set pay and because so much of their pay is stock-related, not because they're increasing their productivity or possess specific high-demand skills, widening the gap between very high earners and the bottom 90%. The economy would suffer no harm if CEOs were paid less or were taxed more. America truly is number one at making the rich richer, and that's the way they like it, which is why you'll see fast food CEOs often blaming inflation for higher costs. But just how true is that? Well, it's not. Between 2014 and 2024, the United States saw inflation rise by about 31%. For the last 110 years, the average rate of inflation was around 3.3% a year, but those numbers are all skewed by some major historical events. Between 2000 and 2020, the average rate of inflation was around 2.5% a year, but in 2021 that skyrocketed to 4.7%, then 8% in 2022, and finally starting its downward trend to 4.1% in 2023. This was a result of the COVID-19 pandemic disrupting global supply chains, with workers unable to produce or ship goods due to lockdown, and countries closely scrutinizing imports. Inflation globally exploded. So how is this 10-year 31% inflation rate compared with prices of fast food? If those defending company profits are right, then we should see a similar correlation between real inflation and fast food prices, right? We should, but we don't. Take Popeyes, for example. The food prices increased by 86% in the same 10-year period. Burger King, Arby's, and Wendy's saw an increase of 55%. Taking the lead, though, is McDonald's, who knows a good opportunity when they see it, and doubled its food prices with a whopping 100% increase in prices since 2014. What's curious is that most companies saw a spike in food prices starting back in the mid-2010s, with a huge spike in 2019 and 2020. That was naturally due to various issues related to the pandemic, but even when the panic officially receded in 2022, prices continued to climb at an astronomical rate. Companies had realized that nobody was really complaining, and they decided if they'd gotten away with it for this long, why not go for broke? It's the surge in the mid-2010s, though, that is of particular note, because that's when companies started doing two things that they don't want you to know about that have significantly raised prices. The first of these has to do with the device most of you are currently watching this episode on. With the smartphone revolution came the convenience revolution, and suddenly people had access to any product they could possibly want with the press of a button. You could go on Amazon and order a box of Dungeons & Dragons collectible miniatures, hop on Wish for some fast fashion, and any number of food apps when you got hungry. Fast food companies saw the explosion in popularity of apps like DoorDash and Grubhub, and they wanted a piece of the action for themselves. In 2019, McDonald's made some big moves in the tech world, spending $300 million to acquire a tech development company, Dynamic Yield, and investing another $3.7 million in mobile app developer Plexure. The aim was to increase the restaurant's reach into cyberspace, developing an app that customers could use to earn discounts on products and thus increase brand loyalty. But it also opened up a lot of online marketing opportunities for McDonald's, all aimed at increasing overall revenues. Of course, that cost has to go somewhere. It's the extra filling in your Big Mac. Turns out, it's not just the secret sauce adding weight to your burger, it's a little tech investment too. In 2024, Burger King invested $300 million of its own money in revamping its entire brand identity. That money is being spent largely on physically upgrading restaurants and refurbishing for a cleaner, more modern look. And those rising Whopper prices are helping to pay for it. How about the additional $150 million invested into app development and online advertising? That is nearly $500 million being invested outside of usual annual expenditures. And it's not just Burger King. Plenty of other fast food chains are jumping on the app bandwagon, pouring huge sums into developing and supporting their own apps. Because who doesn't want a smartphone stuffed with 100 restaurant apps, each waiting to be hunted down the moment you step into a different spot? Still, the discounts can be pretty sweet, just as long as you're dining solo. Fast food apps do offer some pretty decent deals, bringing item prices down to something that feels, well, reasonable. But those deals often take time to earn, and they can only be used one at a time. So no combining a discount on fries with that sweet burger deal. And if you're taking a date to McDonald's, well, they better have their own app and their own rewards program, or you're paying full price for their meal. Then there's another massive cost weighing heavily on the entire food industry. While hard data on this expense is scarce, thanks to financial details being carefully kept under wraps, it doesn't take much imagination to see how it is significantly impacting the cost of food. Celebrity endorsements have skyrocketed in the fast food sector, and it is the consumer who is footing the bill. With the rise of influencers, fast food marketing teams have jumped at the chance to tap into this cultural obsession and push their products, leading to a surge in celebrity-backed campaigns over the past few years. Take 2020, for example. McDonald's teamed up with Travis Scott to offer a special meal, which included a quarter pounder with bacon and cheese, fries, barbecue sauce, and a Sprite. But if that wasn't your taste, you could instead go to Burger King in 2021 and get a Lil Huddy's chicken sandwich as part of their Keep It Real meals. A year later, Doja Cat endorsed Taco Bell's return of the Mexican pizza, and Tom Brady fronted a campaign at Subway. The list goes on and on. And while celebrities have occasionally endorsed fast food products in the past, in the mid-2010s, celebrity endorsements absolutely exploded. This was in tandem with the rise and domination of social media, and it grew to a fever pitch with platforms like TikTok, taking the world by storm. Social media blitzes featuring high-profile celebrities, along with their signature meals, appeared on phone screens everywhere. Because after all, we all know that high-impact sports celebrities definitely eat fast food regularly. The thing about celebrities is, they like money as much as CEOs, which is why celebrities like Travis Scott pull in endorsement deals worth $20 million for a fast food endorsement. How much companies spend on celebrity endorsements are not made public because doing so would make it difficult for them to negotiate. However, a $20 million deal with one celebrity is indicative of just how much money is going toward those runaway celebrity endorsements flooding the world of fast food. It's not the sole cause of fast food price hikes, but it is definitely a factor. And is it working? The data says that it probably isn't, because less and less people are turning to fast food. High prices have turned off many customers, and fast food adjacent brands like Chili's and Applebee's have jumped on the opportunity. Why spend nearly $20 on a small freezer-burned burger served on a bland bun, when for about $12 you can enjoy a full meal, appetizer, and a drink at Chili's as part of their latest marketing campaign? For many customers, the choice is starting to look like a no-brainer. For the first time in history, fast food is increasingly being seen as too expensive to be worth the convenience. It used to be that fast food was gross, but it was cheap and you knew you were making a trade-off in health for convenience and low cost. But now fast food companies expect you to pay premium prices for the same low-quality product. Meanwhile, CEOs often point fingers at workers demanding fair wages as the reason for rising food prices, all while inflating their own pay to astronomical levels. On top of that, they're passing the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars in tech investments and advertising directly to the consumer. But it doesn't have to be like this. In Denmark, fast food workers earn a living wage, and yet prices for menu items remain competitive, sometimes even cheaper than in the US. It's proof that better pay and affordable food can coexist. What do you think is really behind rising fast food prices? Fair wages, corporate greed, or something else? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
A man walks into a famous fast food place in an airport, not because he's a big fan of this particular type of food, but because he has little time before boarding his flight and there aren't too many other food options. His resolve not to eat a lot crumbles no sooner than he's dazzled by all the familiar bright colors around him. He was sure he was going to be sensible, but 15 minutes after entering the place, he's consumed 2,000 calories and doesn't feel too great about it. What he doesn't know is exactly what he has consumed. He's also blissfully unaware of how his brain has been manipulated on several occasions. He's been prey to a business predator that doesn't always tell you how exactly it goes about its work. Today, all will be revealed. Number 8. This is your brain on a large Oreo shake. You all probably agree that sugar is nice. What you might not know is that researchers have pointed to its addictive qualities, something fast food restaurants are very aware of. A hit of sugar, like many drugs in the world, releases feel-good chemicals in your brain. When you eat sugar, you get a small blast of opioids and dopamine, and you feel ever so slightly high. That's why sugar is loaded into many fast food products. You're not just eating junk food because you like it, there's also an element of you needing it. But it goes further than this. You see, we humans evolved in a time where food was scarce. We had to hunt for food, which was often hard, dangerous work. Therefore, we hunted for food items that had a lot of calories and gave us the most energy. These days, you don't have to fight off a pride of hungry lions to get your hands on a piece of beef. In fact, fast food restaurants are everywhere and they're usually cheap. The food items are packed with calories, and so that's one reason we go to those places. Not only that, the food comes to you fast, and so your brain's reward system triggers fast. Convenience is also addictive, and that's why you see so many fast food restaurants and why they offer drive-thru options at certain places. It's all about getting a quick fix. Lastly, there's the Pavlovian thing. You might have heard of Pavlov's dog, which relates to experiments undertaken by Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov. In short, he figured that when a dog heard the sound of its dinner bell, the sound itself made the dog salivate. So why do you think every time you go to a fast food restaurant, you see and hear all the same things? It's because your brain associates all the familiar colors and symbols and sounds with a rewarding experience. You only have to look at a fast food joint to start salivating. The reason for that is the place's consistency. Number 7. They know how our minds work. Studies have shown that when less energy is put into ordering food, we'll make worse choices. Basically, it's less likely you'd go for large fries if the server didn't ask you if you'd like to boost the size of your meal. In fact, you might not go for the fries at all if someone didn't ask you, "Do you want fries with that?" Scientists believe that we feel less guilty when someone asks us to order a bit more, since there's less responsibility on the buyer. They're not asking you out of curiosity, they're manipulating you. When we say you, we mean of course the company, not the server. It works too. Some sources say in 1 year, McDonald's makes an extra $28 million in revenue just from upsizing its products for people. As a consumer, you might get into a place with the best intentions of not eating too much, but as soon as you're asked if you want more, you will get more. As the New York Times once wrote, when McDonald's asks if you want fries with it, it already knows the answer. It's not just the spoken word either. Lately, some fast food restaurants have invested in technology that shows customers many other options on a bright screen stationed in front of where they're standing. If you're visiting a drive-thru restaurant, new technology can now recognize your license plate and quickly understand what you ordered in the past. That way, the company knows what options to flash up in front of you. It'll know if you're partial to supersizing meals or buying a milkshake. As one person told the New York Times, these sorts of technologies are making it hard for people to just find some reasonable moderation. It's the same with value meals. The restaurants know very well that you'll more often than not go for them, even though you went in with the best intentions of getting one solitary burger. You see, when you look at prices, a place in your brain called the orbital frontal cortex starts to fire up. Scientists have found that when a person buys something knowing there was a better deal, brain activity shows some amount of pain. That's the reason there's always a good offer, only if you spend more and eat more. In a nutshell, as soon as you walk through the door, there's a lot of manipulation going on. But as you'll soon see, maybe that's the least of your worries. Number 6. The portions keep getting bigger. Since the 1950s, the USA and a slew of other countries have reported an obesity crisis, and in some part, you can blame fast food. You can find lots of restaurants that have sandwiches that contain just under or just over 1,000 calories. And that's before you start counting calories in the drinks and the fries. Burger King's The Rodeo King of Sandwich weighs in at 1,250 calories. Dairy Queen's 6-piece basket of honey hot glazed chicken strips contains 1,600 calories. A 12-inch classic Italian sub at Quiznos has 1,400 calories in it. And that's a lot of calories to be consuming. Try burning those items off at the gym and you'll find yourself having to walk home with the elliptical machine on your back. Back in the day, there was no such thing as these giant meals. We're living in an era of the mega burger. The thing is, we're suckers for punishment. If Restaurant A offers a bigger burger than Restaurant B and they cost the same, we generally go for the value option. Remember, it's painful to not feel we've gotten a good deal. The drinks are much better too. In the 50s, a soda was just 7 ounces. These days, a small soda is 16 ounces and a large is 32. Some restaurants have been known to offer 64-ounce drinks, which might contain 800 calories. Add to that a large fries with around 460 calories in many places, as well as a burger, and you've got yourself a meal containing almost as many calories as an average person should consume in an entire day. There's also the fact that restaurants have over time renamed their drinks. For some places, what used to be known as large is now medium. What used to be medium is now small. Customers think they're getting a really great bargain, but you have to remember that food costs are less than operating costs for the restaurants. Giving you more doesn't hurt them so much. They just want to keep you coming back. Number 5. Tattooed food. When you order something that's supposedly been flame grilled, it likely hasn't gone through the process. It'll still have those black grill marks on it, but those have been added to the meat during processing. The marks are actually branded on by the supplier. As for the smoky taste, that comes from the processing period too. It's called adding solution to the patties, with some patties being made up of around 20% solution. This solution might consist of a bunch of preservatives, salt, animal fats, and flavorings. According to the experts, it works. People love seeing those grill marks even though they should know they're not real. It's good for the companies since paying for branded grill marks is a lot cheaper than installing grills in the restaurants. Instead, the meat is blasted with hot air when it's first cooked, and then it might have a date with a machine that makes the grill mark, such as the CM42 Char Maker. Now for something a little more frightening. Number 4. What's in a chicken nugget? McDonald's has taken a lot of flack over the years for its famous chicken McNuggets and their lack of chicken. But if you go to the company's website now, you'll read they contain 100% white meat chicken. Still, you can find a study published by the American Journal of Medicine in 2013 that talked about many chicken nuggets that were tested by scientists. The study didn't mention which restaurants' nuggets were featured, but said after testing it found at most places the nugget consisted of around 50% meat. So what was in the rest of the nuggets, you might wonder with some degree of consternation? The scientists wrote they found ground-up bone, blood vessels, nerve, and connective tissue. Even worse, scientists at the University of Mississippi Medical Center said what can often be found is a similar mashup as you might find in a dog food. This is the sludge-type meat you've all likely seen, sometimes called meat slurry or liquefied meat. There's something called mechanically separated meat. This is basically a process in which all the meat left on the animal carcass is blasted off and then put through a sieve. The entire animal is not ground down and turned to mush, but all the edible tissue comes off. You might still find this kind of meat in things such as hot dogs and chicken nuggets, or even some patties. But if what you're eating contains mechanically separated meat, by law, the packaging should state as such. This kind of process doesn't involve any beef since people were concerned about mad cow disease. When it comes to pork, only 20% of your hot dog, if bought in the US, can contain the sludge. With chicken, it seems the product could contain 100% mechanically separated meat. As for it being a public health risk, most experts say if the product has been made in a safe environment, then it should be safe as any other meat. It's also usually treated with something called ammonium hydroxide. This is to get rid of dangerous bacteria. Still, the European Food Safety Authority said high-pressure production processes increase the risk of microbial growth. Number 3. Would you like a finger with that? You might not be surprised to hear that sometimes strange and even dangerous things are found in the products at fast food restaurants. It said in 2019, McDonald's sold 2.36 billion burgers worldwide. That worked out to around 75 burgers a second. Burger King sells a similar number of burgers. So if you add up all sales from all fast food restaurants, well, the numbers are mind-boggling. That's one reason why sometimes things go wrong, and when they do, you can be sure you'll hear about it. In 2011, it was reported that a man in the US was suing Burger King after eating a triple stacker burger and finding a needle from a syringe had pierced his tongue. During his 6-day stay in the hospital, Another needle was retrieved from the man's small intestine. In 2010, the media reported that a man had settled out of court after he bit into a Burger King burger and discovered it contained a condom. According to the guy's lawyer, he sustained pain and suffering, vomiting, nightmares, mental and emotional distress. Sure he did. In 2008, a guy in the UK had just opened his sweet chicken chili sandwich from Subway only to find a 4-inch knife baked into it. His wife later said, "Something small like a hair you could understand, accidents happen, but not a knife." That same year at a Subway restaurant in New York City, a man said he found a 7-inch blade in his sandwich. He apparently only got as far as biting into the handle. Other things found in fast food meals have been Band-Aids, feathers, lungs, a human tooth, chicken heads, a mouse, bullets, painkillers, household nails, human skin, and even a finger. Quite a few bits of fingers have been found, in fact, notably one at Arby's. A woman once tried to claim compensation from Wendy's on another occasion after saying she'd found a finger. The truth was she placed it there herself. She'd been given it by her husband, who bought it from a coworker who had an accident at work. Number 2. Healthy might not be healthier. Okay, so you're the type of person who only eats all the healthy stuff when you go to a fast food restaurant. You know, the items like the taco salad. Well, when you look at all the things those salads contain, they aren't a healthy option at all. The average fast food taco salad may contain 900 calories and 55 grams of fat. That's as much as the average burger and fries. Then there are items such as the McDonald's fruit and maple oatmeal. This kind of thing was created to attract more health-conscious people to the restaurant. It's not actually that healthy though, just because it contains a lot of sugar. You get some health benefits from such a meal, but it's also like eating a full candy bar. The word bland is usually not in a fast food chain's vocabulary. Maybe you like to go for the salad option, but the problem with fast food salads is they so often come with those tasty creamy sauces, bits of bacon, fried chicken, or tacos. That's the conclusion that was come to by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine when they went in search of fast food salads. McDonald's Crispy Bacon Ranch salad, for instance, had more fat and calories than a Big Mac. Cheesecake Factory's Barbecue Ranch chicken salad contains 1,250 calories. The same goes for some smoothies. They can contain a lot of sugar, sometimes having as much as 900 calories. The truth is, fast food restaurants are just likely not the best places to go if you want to eat healthy and are counting calories. As for pizza, the most wonderful invention bestowed on humankind, doesn't it sometimes come with olives, onions, and other veggies that we can feel proud of eating? Well, you should know that Americanized fast food pizza is different from your traditional Italian pizza, especially if it was actually made in Italy. American fast food pizzas usually contain much more bread, way more fat, way more salt, lower quality ingredients, and are generally just much more calorific. Remember, this is all about you coming back for more and feeling like you got a good deal. We looked at how many calories were in one slice of a fast food restaurant's 14-inch large pizza. It all depends on the style of pizza and, of course, what the toppings are. One slice could be as low as 180 calories if it's just cheese and tomato pizza, but if you're thinking about eating all 8 or 10 slices, that's still a lot of calories. One slice of Pizza Hut's Supreme Pizza contains 400 calories and 740 milligrams of sodium. How many of those could you eat? The American Heart Association says you should try and consume less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. We're guessing some of our viewers could easily finish a full large Pizza Hut pie. Some other pizzas we found contain over 600 calories a slice and over 1,400 milligrams of sodium. Burger joints might find themselves being criticized the most, but in terms of sheer calories, eating full pizzas is arguably the biggest enemy at the gates to your belly. Then again, swing by Wendy's and grab yourself a pretzel bacon pub triple cheeseburger, 1,520 calories, 1,910 milligrams of sodium, and then head over to Sonic for an Oreo peanut butter shake, 1,720 calories, 1,040 milligrams of sodium, and get yourself the Cajun fries from Popeyes, 804 calories, 1,761 milligrams of sodium, and you won't be faring much better than the pepperoni pizza addicts of this world. Number 1. Crowded burgers. Some of you might think that when you eat a slab of meat from a burger restaurant, you're eating one cow. That couldn't be further from the truth. Your patty could contain bits of meat from over 100 cows. This doesn't mean it's any less ethical or more dangerous than eating a piece of steak, but some people have said we are so detached from what we eat that we don't even think about the hundreds of animals living on packed farms that go into one patty. Fast food firms seem to have cleaned up their act somewhat when it comes to how cattle are treated, but let's be honest here, industrialized farms can't be the best places in the world. As for the slaughter, well, that just sounds awful. Reports state that sometimes the transportation part is cruel, with one worker saying he saw partly conscious animals being cut up after a terrible ride in a truck. It's hardly a secret that cattle and poultry on some of those massive industrial farms sometimes have an existence from an animal nightmare. But fast food restaurants would rather show you cartoonish images of animals than chickens suffocating in their own poo. We can't speak for all farms in all countries, of course, but we can't deny the horrors of factory farming. Those farms are generally kept as far away from the consumer's eyes as possible. For good reason, too, because they might turn you off of the food. Kenneth Lamar Noyd walks into a Domino's pizza shop in Chamblee, Georgia. The smell of freshly baking dough and tomato sauce fills the air. The man behind the counter smiles and asks Kenneth what he can get him. After a moment's pause, Kenneth pulls out a gun. "I want $100,000, a white limousine, and a book," he says. "And if I don't get it, I'm killing everyone in this store." Sean Burnsett freezes at the .357 Magnum pointed at him. Adrenaline pumps through his body as his fight-or-flight response engages. "Whatever you want, man," he tells Kenneth. Burnsett fumbles with the cash register. He puts in the wrong code, and the drawer doesn't open. The gunman becomes visibly upset. He tries again, and this time the drawer opens. The store itself doesn't have $100,000 in the register or safe, which means that Burnsett and his co-worker are about to become hostages. Kenneth seems to want more than just cash, though. Burnsett and his co-worker had opened the shop only minutes before Kenneth Noyd walked in and took out his gun. Originally, they had wanted to make it through the day so they could just get paid and go home. Now all they want to do is get out of the store alive. "Take everything in the register," Burnsett tells the gunman. Kenneth looks at him, becoming a little bit annoyed. He starts explaining that it's not just about the money. Domino's has been using his identity and making fun of him at the same time. He believes that Tom Monahan, the owner of Domino's, owes him a lot of money because their new mascot is based on him. Burnsett pauses for a moment with a confused look on his face. "The mascot?" he asks. Burnsett glances at the poster hung up on the wall of the store. On it is the claymation mascot of Domino's called the Noyd. The man, pointing a gun at him, tells Burnsett that his name is Kenneth Lamar Noyd. Burnsett immediately realizes the mascot and Kenneth's last name are the same. This man is clearly not well, as the resemblance ends there. But he isn't about to tell him that. Kenneth Noyd had first seen Domino's new mascot in a television commercial, just like millions of other people. In 1986, Domino's had developed a character to sell their groundbreaking new promotion, the delivery of pizza in 30 minutes or less or your cash back. In the commercial, the Noyd, short for annoyed, tries all sorts of crazy gimmicks to delay a Domino's pizza from being delivered on time. The commercials were a huge success. People not only loved the idea of getting their pizza delivered quickly, but they loved the mascot as well. This started to bring Domino's more and more business, which meant they had big plans for the Noyd. In fact, the Noyd character itself became so popular that he even made appearances in Michael Jackson's musical film Moonwalker, video games, and clothing lines. But Kenneth Lamar Noyd did not like the new mascot a bit. He truly thought that Domino's was using it to directly make fun of him. This led Kenneth to the conclusion that he had needed to do something drastic to get Tom Monahan's attention. He decided that holding a Domino's store hostage was the best way to get what he rightfully deserved from the company. Kenneth Noyd yells at Burnsett to get Monahan on the phone. In a panic, Burnsett starts to tell Kenneth that he doesn't know the number to reach Tom Monahan. Employees are not normally privileged to that information. But before he speaks, Burnsett remembers that he was given the safety hotline number during his training. He dials the number. The phone begins to ring. It seems like an eternity until a friendly female voice picks up. Burnsett looks at Kenneth, who is still pointing his gun at him, and explains to the woman on the other line what's going on. Kenneth Noyd tells Burnsett to inform her of exactly why he wants to talk to Tom Monahan. The lady on the other line chuckles as she thinks this is some kind of joke. Then, over the receiver, she hears a gunshot. The line goes deadly quiet. Another shot is fired and can be heard through the phone's speaker. Burnsett comes on the line and tells her that Kenneth Noyd just fired 2 bullets into the ceiling to show he was serious. He pleads with the woman on the phone to get into contact with the owner of Domino's by any means possible. She immediately picks up another phone and dials the police. On Burnsett's line, she can hear Kenneth screaming that he will kill everyone in the store if he doesn't get exactly what he wants. Kenneth Noyd grabs the phone from Burnsett's hands and continues yelling into it. Then he hangs up and slams the phone back into its receiver. Shocked, the woman working the safety hotline tells police exactly what happened and the location of the Domino's store where people are being held at gunpoint. Officers are immediately dispatched, and the Domino's hostage situation over the Noyd mascot officially begins. Burnsett and his co-workers are stuck behind the counter. Kenneth points his gun at them as every phone in the store begins ringing at once. The sound of sirens can be heard in the distance. The Domino's employees can clearly see Kenneth is unhinged. They don't know if they'll make it out of the pizza shop alive, but they do their best to remain calm. As police cars surround the Domino's shop and blue flashing lights flood through the window,
Kenneth Noyd fires 4 warning shots into the ceiling. The police realize just how dangerous the situation is. They don't fire back, but they draw their guns and cover all the exits. Kenneth locks all the doors and stays away from the windows. Officers get a glimpse of him every now and then, but cannot safely take a shot at Kenneth. The phones continue to ring as negotiators try to get through to the man holding the store hostage. Finally, Kenneth Noyd picks up. On the line is a negotiator. They talk for a few minutes while the negotiator listens and builds a profile of the man he's speaking to. Kenneth explains how Domino's is using the Noyd to make fun of him and how the company owes him a lot of money for what they've done. The negotiator actively listens to Kenneth and tells him that he's being heard and that he needs to release the hostages as a sign of good faith. Kenneth Noyd loses his cool and begins screaming at the top of his lungs. The negotiator becomes worried that he might do something drastic. He talks Kenneth down and continues to listen to what he has to say. Although he is coherent, a lot of the things Kenneth is communicating are irrational. He also no longer wants just money, but a getaway plane to Mexico as well. The negotiator has Kenneth go back to the beginning of his story and explain once more why he is holding the people within the pizza shop hostage. The police are biding their time as they formulate a plan to get everyone out of the Domino's alive. Kenneth goes through the whole convoluted story of how Tom Monahan created the Noyd mascot to taunt him and make him look stupid. There's no reasoning with Kenneth Noyd at this point, so the negotiator just listens. Kenneth explains that he still wants the money, but he also requires the police to bring him a copy of a science fiction book called The Widow's Son. The negotiator says they can get the book first and will work on the rest, as securing the money and plane will take time. Obviously, the police are not getting Kenneth a plane or the money, but they need to keep him talking. As negotiations continue, chaos breaks out at the Domino's headquarters in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The executives of the company meet in a boardroom to closely follow the hostage situation. They inform the police that they're willing to provide them with anything they need in order to get their people out safely. Monahan even goes as far as to offer them his private jet if it'll help with negotiations. The police tell the executives they'll be kept in the loop, but for now everything is under control. Even with this reassurance, the heads of the company can't help but worry. They have all the televisions in the conference room on. Every major news station in the country is reporting on the hostage situation. Headlines flash across the screens as reporters speculate what the most likely outcome will be. At any moment, Kenneth Noyd might snap, and people could be seriously injured or killed. Back in Georgia, the police get their hands on a copy of The Widow's Son. The negotiator informs Kenneth they have the book for him, but will have to release one of the hostages in exchange for the novel. This does not sit well with Kenneth. He once again begins screaming into the phone about the conspiracy Domino's has been perpetrating to make him look like an idiot. Kenneth Noyd then tells the negotiator he doesn't want the book anymore and is keeping all the hostages. The law enforcement agents on the scene regroup to come up with another plan. It might be time to consider using force. They must either get into the pizza shop to confront Kenneth or find some way to get him to let the hostages out. While the police formulate their next course of action, Burnside takes matters into his own hands. He knows that the officers outside are trying their best, but it might not be enough. He can see how disgruntled Kenneth Noyd is becoming and is afraid that if he doesn't calm down, someone could get hurt. Burnside begins talking to Kenneth. He tells him that he believes his story, and he feels awful for what Domino's has done to him. Burnside then asks if he can get Kenneth anything. They have been in the shop for a few hours now and everyone's nervous and exhausted. Kenneth Noyd looks up at the menu and thinks for a moment. He asks for an extravaganza pizza. Burnside tells him it's no problem at all and gets to work making the pizza with his coworker. The two Domino's employees put 4 kinds of meat, a plethora of vegetables, and extra mozzarella cheese onto the pizza. They slide it into the oven and wait. Time ticks by. There has been no communication from the negotiator for a while now. Kenneth Noyd paces back and forth across the store. The oven dings and the steaming pizza is pulled out and placed onto the counter. Burnside reaches for a pizza cutter when Kenneth starts screaming at him. "Don't touch that," he shouts. Burnside freezes and drops the pizza cutter in his hand. "Did you think I wouldn't notice you were going to attack me with a pizza cutter?" Kenneth asks. Burnside had no intention of trying to fight off a man with a gun, using only a pizza cutter, but Kenneth doesn't believe him. He tells Burnside to leave the pizza as it is. He'll eat it without having it cut into slices. Burnside shrugs and hands the uncut pizza over to Kenneth. He begins chowing down on the pizza as the two Domino's employees stand in the corner of the store. On the other side of the front door, dozens of police officers aim their pistols at the shop. Across the street, a crowd of people is gathered. News reporters give minute-to-minute updates, while pedestrians look on in anticipation. Even though Kenneth Noyd has been given one of the most expensive pizzas on the menu, he is still dissatisfied. He continues to ask where his money and plane are. No matter what the negotiator says over the phone, no headway seems to be made. The officers in charge decide that they need to go into the shop and talk to Kenneth. The face-to-face interaction will give the police a better idea of his mental and physical state. while also allowing them to check in on the hostages. The negotiator calls the store and waits for Kenneth to pick up. When he does, the negotiator calmly explains they need to have an in-person meeting to talk about what the next steps will be. After going back and forth, Kenneth finally agrees to let officers into the store. Everyone gears up and prepares for the meeting. However, no one could have predicted what would happen next. It's clear that Kenneth Noyd is unstable. The negotiator puts on a bulletproof vest just in case things go sideways. He hopes that by talking to Kenneth in person, he can convince him to release at least one of the hostages. The last thing anyone wants is a shootout, but this is still a very real possibility and the police know it. They tell everyone who's watching the situation unfold to stay back. This is a crucial moment for the hostages and the mission as a whole. The negotiator signals to Kenneth that he's ready to proceed. Kenneth has become extra cautious at this point. The police brought him the book he requested, but haven't met any of his other demands. He knows that they might try to shoot him if he goes to the door himself, so Kenneth tells Burnside to unlock the door and let the negotiator in. Burnside slowly walks up to the front door, reaches out and turns the deadbolt. The door unlocks with a loud click. Burnside looks back at Kenneth and sees that he is several feet away, hiding near the counter. He takes a deep breath, closes his eyes for a moment, and then pushes the door wide open. He rushes out and sprints as fast as he can toward the nearest police car. The whole time he's running, all Burnside can think about is how easily Kenneth could just shoot him in the back, but he had to get out of the store. Although Kenneth hadn't harmed him or his coworker yet, he was slowly becoming more and more unhinged. It was only a matter of time before Kenneth Noyd did something crazy, and Burnside was not going to wait around for it to happen. Burnside pushes his body as hard as it'll go. Officers run out from behind their cover and escort him to safety. Burnside collapses and tells the police everything he knows about the situation inside. Every piece of information is vital if they're going to end the standoff without anyone getting killed. Kenneth Noyd begins to scream as one of his hostages escapes. He runs toward the door but thinks better of it. Kenneth turns and sprints toward the counter and hides behind it. As he turns his back to the door for a moment, Burnside's coworker makes a mad dash for the exit. The coworker bursts through the opening and runs to safety. The police have secured both hostages, but the gunman is still held up in the Domino store. They're really hoping the situation can end without casualties, but Kenneth is armed, dangerous, and now extremely mad. The sun is setting over the small town just outside of Atlanta. It's been nearly 5 hours since Kenneth Noyd entered the Domino's Pizza. Through the windows, police can see that Kenneth appears to be talking to himself. The man is not well, and they're worried that he could hurt himself or do something drastic if they don't get to him soon. The negotiator gets back on the phone and talks to Kenneth. Kenneth Noyd no longer has any hostages or leverage to get what he wants. The negotiator tells him it's over, but he still wants to help. If Kenneth surrenders willingly and without incident, the judge will be lenient as he hasn't hurt anyone yet. There's a pause on the other line. Kenneth hangs up the phone. The negotiator doesn't know what'll happen next. All eyes are on the pizza shop. Kenneth Noyd approaches the front door and opens it. Every officer in the parking lot has their gun aimed at him. Kenneth places his firearm on the ground and puts his hands over his head. Police officers slowly approach him, place his hands behind his back, and arrest him. The hostage situation caused by a misunderstanding over Domino's mascot has come to an end, but the Noyd story isn't quite over yet. Kenneth Lamar Noyd is placed in jail to await his trial. He's charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and theft by extortion. During his trial, Kenneth explains to the court that Tom Monahan was entering his apartment and snooping around at night. He states that Monahan then used the information he gathered on him to create the Noyd mascot. It's clear from Kenneth's testimony that he is paranoid and mentally ill. After some deliberation, the judge finds Kenneth not guilty due to insanity. He's placed in the care of a psychiatric ward where he receives the help he needs to move past his delusions. For several years, Kenneth received psychiatric care. His progress is slow, and he continues to believe the delusion that the Noyd mascot is out to get him. The doctors give him medications and have him in therapy multiple times a week, but nothing seems to help. At the same time that Kenneth is being treated, Domino's continues to use the Noyd in their commercials. Even if Kenneth didn't like the mascot, other people did, and it was helping the company sell pizza. The Noyd continued to try and thwart Domino's pizza delivery personnel from getting to their customers in 30 minutes or less. He used a freeze ray to try and make Domino's pizza cold upon delivery, but no matter what the Noyd did, he would always fail. It's these commercials that led to the Noyd becoming a small but memorable part of people's lives. The nostalgia that they felt for the Noyd helped the character come back in future adventures, even after the hostage situation at the pizza shop. But as Domino's continued to promote their products and the business continued to grow, things started getting worse and worse for Kenneth Noyd. He was still receiving psychiatric help, but his delusions persisted. Then in 1995, Kenneth Noyd passed away tragically. It was around the same time that Domino's stopped using the Noyd mascot. The timing may have been coincidental as no official statement was made, Some spokespeople in the company said Domino's was just going in another direction, and their former mascot wasn't in line with the marketing strategy anymore. But others speculated that the decision to stop using the Noid had to do with Kenneth's passing. Either way, by the mid-90s, the Noid mascot stopped appearing on merch and in new commercials and became just a memory for many. However, the Noid would one day appear again. When Domino's started tossing around the idea of self-driving delivery cars, the Noid was brought up as the perfect villain for the commercials. However, nothing came of this. In 2011, Domino's created the Noid Super Pizza Shootout Facebook game to promote their brand on social media. It was short-lived and didn't seem to help sell very many pizzas, but it did show that the Noid was still in the marketing department's bag of tricks. In fact, the Noid made a much more recent appearance in 2021 in the Crash Bandicoot video game franchise. The game Crash Bandicoot on the Run includes a level where the player has to dodge the Noid's freeze rays in order to complete the level. The hostage situation that developed as a result of a mentally ill man having the same last name as the Domino's mascot was tragic. Kenneth Lamar Noid needed help, and the day he walked into a Domino's with a loaded gun asking for reparations from the pizza company for using his identity was the beginning of the end for both him and the Noid. Even though the Domino's mascot still makes an appearance now and then, the hostage situation likely put a damper on the company's future plans for the mascot in the 90s. You're enjoying your trip to the UK and you've been eating your fill of fish and chips and Cornish pasties. You even got adventurous and had some haggis and spotted dick. But now you're craving something familiar and comforting. It's good old McDonald's, looking just the same as it does in the US. Surely this'll be just like at home, right? Maybe not. On this episode of the Infographic Show, we'll be looking at McDonald's versus McDonald's, US versus UK. How does this iconic chain differ across the Atlantic? And who has the edge in taste, value, special items, and more? First up, presence. McDonald's was founded in the United States and has been synonymous with low-cost hamburgers and nuggets for more than half a century. Over the years, it's faced plenty of competition, from direct competitors like Burger King and Wendy's, and then from specialized burger chains like Shake Shack and In-N-Out. But nothing has come close to competing with Mickey D's dominance. Even with the onset of Starbucks, it still stands alone atop the charts, with a staggering 13,400 chains in the US as of 2024. And that presence has expanded far beyond the US's shores. McDonald's has a total of over 40,000 locations worldwide, and it's developed a presence in just about every friendly country, including the UK. There, it currently has over 1,400 outlets as of the end of 2023, an impressive number given the UK's smaller size and population. But it is far from the dominant force it is in the US. In fact, it is not even close to the top fast food chain there. That would go to Greg's, a bakery chain known for its sausage rolls, which has expanded into convenience store and drive-through locations. Can't beat the old ways in jolly old England, and a sausage McMuffin will never be a sausage roll. But enough about the numbers, what about the taste? If you ask the average American how McDonald's tastes, they'd say, like McDonald's. There's something uniquely comforting about the fast food place, which probably comes from the artery-clogging combo of salt and grease. While it might not be the unhealthiest fast food place around, the most famous dishes are usually something close to mystery meat in the best way. The texture of a McDonald's McNugget, or the patty that goes into a Happy Meal burger, feels distinctly McDonald's, and most fans like it that way. But the same might not exactly go for the UK. One of the top complaints that American visitors to UK McDonald's have is that the food just seems a little off. A common complaint is that the buns are a little more crumbly, or the fries seem to go soggy a little more quickly. To which UK customers might go, so what, that's what food's supposed to do. In general, the food tastes a little more like real food than fast food, and that might be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're used to. And there is a reason for that. Let's go to nutrition. Restaurants don't exist in a vacuum in the US or the UK. Both have to answer to government authorities about safety and food prep, but also about calorie content. In both countries, there's been an increase in concern about the fat and sugar content of fast food, especially when it comes to kids' meals. Some cities have imposed new taxes or labeling restrictions on fast food places, with some politicians calling for stricter federal regulations. But little has happened on that front, and US fast food still tends to be high in calories. For instance, some classic items like that Big Mac and a medium milkshake in the US have 590 calories and 620 calories respectively. But those looking to watch their waistline might want to head across the pond. Surprisingly, the calorie content in the UK looks very different. The British Big Mac comes in at 508 calories, a Coke will have 40 fewer calories, and fries are almost 30 calories less. The biggest decrease comes in the milkshake though, which sheds a whopping 250 calories. So, what's the cause? Is it government intervention? And can Mickey D's possibly taste the same with such a difference in nutrition? It all comes down to the tail of the tape. Let's look at the ingredients. Both US and UK McDonald's make it easy to find what goes into their food on the website. This is essential for people with food allergies or other special dietary needs or restrictions, but it's also useful for those who keep tabs on their nutrition. For those who are used to the US McDonald's fare, they might be shocked by just how many ingredients there are in their food. For instance, that Big Mac contains 68 ingredients, and in the US, a whopping 31 of them are in the bun alone. The UK? Only 19. The UK is known for its more stringent approval process for food additives than the US. Most food additives are used to prolong shelf life and improve the appearance of food, rather than improve their flavor. Additives like sodium acid pyrophosphate in the fries are designed to keep them from turning gray when frozen. That is missing in the UK, along with the trans fats used in the US. In fact, the fries in the UK contain just 5 ingredients: potatoes, 2 types of oil, dextrose, and salt. In general, UK McDonald's will be much less likely to have preservatives and high fructose corn syrup than the US version, the latter of which is a huge contributor in calories. But what about where it counts? The menu. Everyone knows the US McDonald's menu inside and out. There's a wide selection of burgers ranging from those small snack-sized ones to quarter-pounders to the famous Big Mac. Then there's the McNuggets, the Filet-O-Fish, and some chicken sandwiches. For sides, it's pretty much fries, and that's it. But who really needs more? They keep it simple in the US, and that tried-and-true approach has helped them stay at the top of the fast food charts, with many cult favorite items falling by the wayside over the years. But you might not be missing them forever if you have a plane ticket. One of the biggest surprises for American visitors to the UK is how many of their old favorites have made a comeback over here. One example is the Chicken Selects, a grown-up alternative to the famous McNuggets, made with cuts of breast meat and breaded in slightly spicier batter. They're still a regular on the menu at UK McDonald's, for those who feel they are ready to graduate from the nugs. And for those who feel like eating light, a side salad is still available in the UK, along with larger salads and chicken wraps. In total, the menu is almost twice the size in the UK compared to the American offerings. And that's before we get into one big area of the menu: how we kick off the day. Breakfast at McDonald's is iconic. Who doesn't know Egg McMuffins or those crispy hash browns? And then there's the Big Breakfast, one of the most famous and affordable fast food meals around. There are lighter options like the sausage burrito and the fruit and maple oatmeal, and coffee from the McCafe section. But the menu has definitely shrunk over the years, with favorites like the McGriddles and the steak, egg, and cheese bagel largely disappearing from the offerings as they streamline the offerings. And this is one of the areas where the difference in culture becomes much clearer. There are plenty of ways to have a traditional British breakfast in McDonald's. For one thing, simple sandwiches like bacon rolls with tangy brown sauce are available for those avoiding dairy. Traditional porridge is one of the lightest and most affordable items on the menu and has a cult following among those who grew up on it. But for those who want a heartier meal, there are also some big surprises here, like a cheesy bacon flatbread or a sausage and egg breakfast wrap with brown sauce. This is probably the area of the menu where visitors from either country will be the most surprised. But what if you come into McDonald's with some unique dietary needs? It's time to talk about the special diet section. If you're visiting McDonald's in the US and you want to stay away from animal products, you're not going to have an easy time. You might be able to cobble together a snack out of fries and desserts, but there is no main course to be found. The company used to sell a veggie burger called the McPlant in a few test markets using Beyond Meat, but it flopped, just like several previous attempts. At breakfast, you're gonna do a little better, with options like hotcakes, eggs, and hash browns making it easier for vegetarians. But in the UK, you might feel like you're at the feasting table. The UK has a much larger South Asian population than the US does, with many abstaining from beef in particular and meat overall in some cases. The McPlant was a hit over there, as were the veggie dippers, nugget-shaped fritters filled with a mix of spiced vegetables, which can be had on their own or in a sandwich called the Vegetable Deluxe. Even vegans can enjoy all of these, as well as desserts like the non-dairy strawberry and chocolate scoop, a new frozen dessert currently being rolled out. That's the regular menu. Now let's talk about the specials. If you've been eating at McDonald's for a while, you might remember occasionally seeing a surprise on the menu. Remember Fish McBites, the Arch Deluxe, and of course the beloved McRib? They were only around for a limited time, and oh, do you miss them? Probably. But in recent years, the US McDonald's has become less ambitious with these specials, usually rolling out slight variations like spicy chicken sandwiches with different sauces. But it is rare to see something that doesn't match the core categories of food items. There is one exception in the dessert menu, where new flavors of pies and shakes come out regularly. But in the UK, diversity rules the day. The specials in the UK tend to stretch the bounds of the menu much more, with the offerings in 2024 including fried cheese bites and a chili double cheeseburger. In the past, McDonald's in the UK has offered foods based on classic Indian cuisine, including an Indian chicken burger that was served on garlic naan bread. McDonald's has a thriving business in India as well, where many unique items show up, but only a few of them have made their way over to the UK so far. Now it's time for a sweet finish. Let's look at dessert. The dessert menu in the US is fairly limited, consisting of fried apple pies and specialty pies, plus regular and seasonal shakes and McFlurries. You can also get more wholesome options like apple slices or the fruit and maple oatmeal for breakfast. Plus, if a miracle happens and the ice cream machine is working, go to town. But there is one big addition to this, but maybe not for the kids. The US McDonald's chain has become very well known for its McCafe menu, which features a massive selection of sweet drinks ranging from simple lattes to indulgent coffee and caramel concoctions topped with whipped cream. But at a UK McDonald's, it's a very different story. Looking for coffee? Your choice is coffee or a latte. No fancy sweet drinks here. But you won't be missing out. The dessert selection here is impressive. In addition to pies and McFlurries, you'll find other frozen desserts like the vegan strawberry or choco scoop and the ice pop like McFreezy. But the baked goods selection here is where the UK McDonald's really shines, featuring original treats like the mixed berry muffin and multiple flavors of donuts. In fact, the place is well known as a dessert spot over there. But McDonald's needs new customers, so how about kid appeal? McDonald's in the US was a kid sensation for the longest time. Known for its colorful mascots like Ronald McDonald and Grimace, its elaborate play places, and its birthday parties. And most famously, its Happy Meals, which come in a colorful box with a toy. However, growing concerns about the nutritional content of Happy Meals led McDonald's to minimize its marketing to kids. The Happy Meals and its toys remain, but most of the rest have been phased out, and the current design of McDonald's is less colorful than it used to be. And over in the UK, it is a very similar story. You might notice a few subtle differences, like the fact that Happy Meals come with a choice of a toy or a book in the UK, and fish fingers are an option in the kids' menu. No doubt owing to the massive popularity of fish and chips in the UK. The palate of children is a little different there. But similarly to the US, the play places have mostly been removed and the use of famous mascots is minimized. However, the viral Grimace shake did make its way over there eventually, even if the memes around it didn't make it seem all that kid-friendly. But there is one factor that is on everyone's mind these days. How does McDonald's hit the pocketbook? Inflation is on everyone's mind at the moment, and McDonald's is no different. The price has gone up quite a bit on the famous budget fast food favorite. It's estimated that the average value of a meal featuring an entree, fries, and a drink could cost about $11 in the US right now. That is still affordable compared to many lunch spots, but certainly enough to make many people look toward the value menu. Is your wallet going to feel better after a trip to the UK? Well, airfare aside, maybe a little. The UK went through its own inflation crisis after Brexit, but the worst-case scenarios have mostly dissipated. While the US is ranked 7th overall in the average price of a McDonald's value meal, the UK is all the way down at 26, with the average price of an equivalent meal being just over $9. That is definitely a savings, but the portions tend to be slightly smaller in the UK as well, which helps the calorie counts. And the winner is whichever one you grew up with. Because we all know McDonald's tastes best when you're eating it after a soccer game and just got that super cool toy. Which McDonald's reigns supreme, US or UK? Share your favorite and your go-to order in the comments.
Just how hard is the 9-to-5 working life when you're stuck at what should be an entry-level job? To find out, we sent your favorite lab rat out into the field to work at a fast food joint for a week. Alright, info fans, are you ready for the Millennial Challenge? I have to work at a fast food restaurant for a week, just like many millennials who were seriously lied to about just how many opportunities are really out there, even for people with college degrees. Now, fast food is nothing new to me. In fact, it was my very first job, which I got fired from. Then it was my very second job because my parents believed in me working literally the day I turned 16. One of their birthday gifts to me was a job application. I ended up working part-time while going to school, and I'm glad I learned that strong work ethic at a young age. But heading back into the low-wage sector of the job force definitely feels different almost 20 years later. First, no, I can't tell you where I was working for legal reasons, but I can give you a hint. The ice cream machine wasn't working a single day I was there. Starting on day one, it already felt weird to walk into my new job in my mid-30s. Let's face it, there's a stigma about fast food work. It's supposed to be entry-level, but if you're there for years or are older, then there's clearly something wrong with you. And I really hate that stigma because you really shouldn't be looking down on anyone who's putting in an honest day's work. But it's hard to deny that I definitely felt a bit of shame in my uniform. I also felt like the people were literally looking down on me the entire week I was there. Although I'd soon learn that that had nothing to do with my age and everything to do with the fact that society treats fast food workers like complete dog crap. It's almost like people feel entitled to be rude or look down on or denigrate fast food workers because, hey, it's fast food. If you wanted respect, you should have gotten a real job like digging ditches with your bare hands or designing space planes. Except for many people living in less than ideal situations, neither of those are realistic options. A mother of two with health problems isn't going to work on a road crew, and a young girl from a poor family who can't afford college isn't going to be designing space planes. Not because they're lazy, but because circumstances. In case you couldn't tell, the elitism from people looking down on fast food workers who want a living wage really seriously bothers me. Anyways, day one was a disaster. I can already read the comments. What's so hard about flipping burgers? Well, you try handling a lunch rush with hundreds of customers, all of whom need their meals within minutes or they'll be late getting back to their own job. Oh, and at least half had a serious attitude. I worked hard in my life, but after day one on the line, I was aching. I came home from my first day stinking of grease, which made the girlfriend crinkle up her nose in disgust because she won't even touch fast food. The dog, however, was basically my best friend until I hopped in the shower. He absolutely loved the smell of stale grease and hamburgers. On day two, I got to train on the drive-thru, and I was actually decent at it. I used to work a drive-thru at one of my fast food jobs when I was a teenager, and honestly, most of the pressure comes from being afraid to talk to people. I definitely don't have an issue with that, so it was just a matter of learning the computer menus. My trainer, whom we'll call Rosa, was a pretty impressive person. She was whip smart, confident, and worked at lightning speed. During our lunch break, we got to know each other some, and she told me she really wanted to be a writer. Even though she'd gotten a scholarship to a very good art school, she couldn't afford the cost of living expenses. So here she was, trying to put money aside so she could eventually go. I was really excited to hear she wanted to be a writer, and it was hard for me to hide the fact that that's my real job. My only hiccup in the day came when I was in too much of a rush and went to hand a drink over to the customer, but clipped the bottom of the drive-thru window with the cup. It immediately knocked back toward me and soaked my crotch in soda. With no change of pants available, I basically had to marinate my Hugh Jackman and the boys in sugary syrup until I got home, at which point the dog practically dove headfirst to my crotch looking for a sugary treat. Day 3, I finally met every fast food worker's worst nightmare, the dreaded Karen. It was late in my shift, close to 2 or 3 p.m. when I spotted it. A flash of blonde hair in that short middle-aged woman cut. To me and the rest of the crew's horror, though, it wasn't just one Karen, it was multiples. Now, in case you don't know, Homo Karenus is often encountered alone in public spaces such as community center parking lots, dog parks, and the wine aisle of your local high-end grocery store. These encounters are often brief, but potentially violent, and park rangers recommend that you avoid eye contact or making any sudden aggressive movements. If you encounter a Karen in its natural habitat, your best bet is to simply turn around and walk away, as any amount of engagement will trigger the Karen's natural predatory response and can lead to police being called and you being recorded while she shouts, "Yeah, I got you on camera," and occasionally spitting. Despite unnecessarily overly aggressive individuals, Karens are typically incredibly and paradoxically oversensitive themselves. This is why Karens regularly congregate in groups, which are called murders, just like crows. Karens typically can't stand each other's Karen bullshit long enough to maintain social cohesion, and thus limit their cooperation to small 1 or 2 hour units of time. The one exception is when a murder of Karens has a shared target. Then they show incredible levels of social cooperation and cohesion. So imagine my dread when a murder of Karens entered the restaurant and headed straight for the counter. I knew I'd better get this order perfectly. The only situation possibly more dangerous than this that I'd ever been on in a challenge was when I was surviving in the wild and a bear came up on my camp. Honestly, I'd rather dealt with that bear. Rosa knew this was too much for me to handle being so new. The rookie was out of his depth, so the seasoned veteran came along to help make sure the restaurant survived this murder of Karens intact. One wrong move and every manager would be called along with the police, fire, medical, district court judges, the mayor, Batman, and the UN Security Council. Ordering already was a bit rough. I was on the register and even with Rosa's help was having trouble figuring out all the buttons. This annoyed the Karens, who I guess couldn't possibly fathom that a human being doesn't fall out of its mother's womb knowing the full intricacies of a computerized food ordering menu system with dozens of items and variations of said items listed. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I'd chased off a wild bear before. This was no different. There was even a handy mop nearby I could use to fend off the Karen should the need arise. In these survival situations, you always have to be prepared. Luckily, the Karens left the counter to wait for their order at the table nearby, and for the next few minutes, everything was fine. Then, it began. It started with the guy who ordered right after the Karens getting his food first. As soon as I handed the food to the guy and before I could even tell him to have a nice day, I heard it. The hunting cry of a wild Karen. Excuse me? I turned to the table and immediately made a rookie mistake by looking the Karen in the eye. This one was already standing up, and I could tell from the fact that the others were sitting that this one was the alpha Karen. Murders of Karens are vicious groups, and only the absolute bitchiest, most discontent Karen has the savage ferocity needed to claim alpha status. Alpha Karen was quick to speak up. We ordered before him and still haven't gotten our food. Now, this guy had ordered a single burger and fries versus the 5 different meals their group had ordered. The girlfriend often tells me I'm not always very tactful in tricky social situations, and it's been many years since I've worked customer service. So the only response I could think of to this ridiculous complaint was, yep, I acknowledged that this event had in fact just happened. He got his food first, and I think it's pretty obvious why. But this was a mistake of the gravest magnitude. I had just chummed the waters, and the Karen smelled blood. If we ordered first, we should get our food first. That's just common sense. You don't serve the last person in a line first. I will forever be grateful for dear sweet Rosa jumping in. She proved to be an adept Karen wrangler. Then she immediately apologized and tried to explain that one single order was easier and quicker to prepare than a large one, and that they didn't want to send out their big order in pieces so that some people were eating while others were still waiting. Incredibly, no manager was called, but I think it's because thankfully within 90 seconds of the confrontation starting, their food was ready. I think the guys in the kitchen realized that every manager in a 5-block radius was about to be called and went into overdrive. To this day, I'm grateful to them. What really bothered me about this was Rosa apologizing to the Karens. She had literally nothing to apologize for. It was the Karens who were in the wrong and acting like terrible human beings. But I get it, it's customer service. Like Rosa later told me, it's just not worth it. Better to get them out the door quickly than have to deal with them. Honestly, her philosophy on dealing with difficult people is pretty great. My last 2 days were uneventful, just kind of monotonous. The location was really busy, so we were constantly getting orders, and it's tough being on your feet all day trying to please people who can be incredibly difficult. Then there's the silent disapproval from some people because of the job you work, especially if something goes wrong with their order. How dare you get their order wrong? You're just a lowly burger flipper, barely even human. But surely this job isn't too difficult for you? That kind of crap can really weigh on you, especially for some of the guys and girls I met who really had no other choice but to work here. I did get busted though, on my 5th day by Rosa. She figured out exactly who I was. On my last shift, the girlfriend thought it'd be cute to come by and see me work, so she stopped by close to the end of the shift. I noticed Rosa was kind of watching us intently after I introduced her, and I think the girlfriend gave it away when she mentioned something about this not being such an easy challenge. It was an innocent slip of the tongue, and she realized it immediately and went deathly quiet. When we got back to work, Rosa kept looking at me funny, and then over at the girlfriend who was waiting for me to get off. Then, when I clocked out, she finally confronted me. "You're the challenge guy, aren't you?" Typically, I have a great poker face, but this was so unexpected I literally began to stammer. I tried denying it. But like I said before, Rosa's pretty whip smart. To my surprise, she was a fan of the show, and I guess she'd seen enough challenge episodes to figure it out. I made her swear to not tell anyone, and she just kept kind of repeating, "I can't believe you're real," which is a really weird thing for someone to say about you directly to your face. A few days later, I contacted Rosa again. I had an even better idea for making sure she stayed quiet. During the week, she'd sent me some of the stuff she'd written, under the guise of me offering some of my worldly wisdom. In reality, I was scoping her out. I knew she was really smart, but I wanted to know if she could write, because we recently had a writer's position open up. I talked to the producers, and we offered her a job, something to supplement her normal work and get some experience. She gladly accepted. But nobody is happier than me because much like the mafia, the best way to keep someone quiet is to bring them into the family. So what did I learn from my week at a fast food joint? Honestly, I already knew the work was harder than most people make out. But it was interesting to relive some of that inner shame you feel putting on a fast food uniform. Frustrating too, because like I said, nobody should feel ashamed for putting in an honest day's work, no matter where that is. And for everyone who loves to share memes like this to point out how ridiculous it is that burger flippers want to get paid the same as other jobs, maybe you're missing the point. Maybe what you should be mad about isn't burger flippers asking for a realistic living wage, and instead be mad that the industry has exploited you so that you're working much more technical or difficult job for such a low wage. Ever since Game of Thrones The Mountain revealed his incredible 10,000 calorie daily diet, doing a 10,000 calorie meal has become a sort of ritual of passage for YouTube stars. That's when we thought, hey, wait, we've got a YouTube star of our own, everyone's favorite infographics lab rat, and since he's on the payroll, we can make him do whatever we want. So forget 10,000 calories in one meal, we're putting YouTube's most expendable writer on a 10K calorie diet for an entire week. Day 1. I'm excited for this challenge. I mean, I love eating. It's probably my favorite thing to do. In fact, I have to actively try to not eat just so I can stay in shape. This is literally the challenge I've been waiting for, and the challenge the girlfriend has probably liked the least. She told me that if I did this challenge, then it wouldn't be junk food. If I was going to try the Mountain's incredible diet, then I had better do it the same way he does, which means 10,000 calories of mostly healthy stuff and a whole lot of exercise. And you know what? I'm into it. I'm willing to give it a go, except there's a twist. Infographics is offering me another $200 incentive to put a quote fun spend end quote on the challenge for each additional mini challenge I undertake. There's 5 of these additional challenges, and I don't get to find out what they are until I open the envelope with each challenge inside it. For each one I manage to complete, I get an extra $200, which is a good thing because we did some calculations and this is gonna rake up one hell of a grocery bill. I mean, Infographics is footing the bill, I'm filing that under expenses, but still, it's going to be significant. We went to the grocery store yesterday and stocked up on beef, chicken, fish, a ton of pasta, milk, like 6 cartons of eggs, a literal pound of cheese. My 1-week cart looked like what we might go through in a month. What a delicious challenge ahead of me. Okay, so I figured I'd open 1 envelope a day, and the first one is simply replicate the Mountain's workout along with the diet. Sounds easy enough, I'll report it at the end of the day. End of day 1. Alright, I'm feeling, I don't know yet. Very, very full would be a good answer, but also my body's about ready to die from replicating the Mountain's workout. I guess it makes sense. You can't eat as much as this and not get crazy fat unless you're exercising and putting all those calories to use. So for breakfast I had 8 eggs, a bowl of oats, like 2 bushes worth of strawberries, blueberries, and avocados, and then it was off to a local CrossFit place to start the Mountain's workout. In case you haven't heard of CrossFit, and none of your friends do it because if they did, they'd be talking about it constantly and never shut up about how awesome it is. Basically, CrossFit's a lifestyle choice. I'm not kidding, that's literally what trainers say the moment you step through the door. You do a lot of strength and aerobic training, lose a bunch of weight, and get real strong. But you do it doing things like hitting tires with hammers or dragging tires around or flipping tires over and over again and again and again. Yeah, it's a lot of tire stuff. Though my personal favorite at this local CrossFit place, literally dragging a ship's anchor behind you as you sprint. I guess since we're so close to the beach, it's just keeping on theme. At least it's not a tire. Just kidding, they do that too. I mean, there's regular exercises too, like weight benches and free weights and stuff, but CrossFit, or at least CrossFit in LA, loves to improvise. So instead of a 50-pound weight, you throw around a giant industrial fire extinguisher. It's, well, I guess it's certainly more interesting than a normal workout when you're improvising everything you're lifting, dragging, or pushing. I should have probably taken notes, but I was so exhausted I would have completely forgotten to, but
Basically, I feel I did every variation of every exercise known to man. And if this is how the mountain trains, wow, no wonder he's a contender for world's strongest man. In order to stay on diet, I had to stop in the middle of the exercise and eat a ton of nuts and berries, more juicy calories down the gullet to fuel my Superman workout. When it was finally time for lunch, I had a ton of protein powder with full-fat milk, chicken pasta that I had meal prepped the day before, and copious amounts of yogurt. Honestly, I'm not sure how I'm keeping it all down, especially when half an hour later I was back to hurling heavy ropes around and flipping tires over for hours on end. By the time night came, I definitely earned an extra $200. Let me put it this way, the mountain is the mountain for a reason. The dude's a beast, and if you want to replicate his workout, maybe don't dive straight into it the way I did. I'm not sure I'll be able to get out of bed tomorrow. I feel a lot of sore muscles coming on. Day 2. I was right. I could barely move today. I effectively annihilated every muscle in my body yesterday, but the challenge must go on, and luckily eating doesn't require much exercise. I decided I could definitely do another challenge as long as it wasn't physical, and luckily for me this challenge was to eat 10,000 calories of vegetables and fruits. Wait, sorry, did I say lucky? I meant, you know what, it's not a word I'm allowed to say on YouTube because we'll get demonetized. You know what's better than the 5 to 7 servings of fruit and veggies you're supposed to get a day? 30 extra large servings, which is what me and the girlfriend very roughly estimated would take to accomplish 10,000 calories in one day. Okra, carrots, squash, oranges, beans of all sorts, corn. I think I ate every vegetable and/or fruit known to man today. Honestly, the simplest thing to do was to go to the store and buy like 5 cans of Bush's baked beans. Those things weigh in at 150 calories per half a cup a serving, and you can pack a lot of servings into one of those restaurant-sized cans. Also, I fried every vegetable I could, though the girlfriend made me use olive oil, so that cut down on the calories. I even tried frying some of the fruit, just out of sheer eating boredom, but that was a terrible idea. I literally ate all day, because to get 10,000 calories worth of vegetables and fruits, you have to really beat the clock. Day 3. Okay, my body isn't quite as dead as it was yesterday, and I can move without every muscle screaming at me to get back into bed. I'm legitimately starting to dread breakfast. It's kind of become a chore. I have to figure out how to hit 10,000 calories every single day, so I have to break it down by meal, and I really hate math. Thankfully, eggs are pretty full of calories, so I whipped up a 6-egg omelet with all the fixins, and I do mean all the fixins, and then scarfed it down with 4 pieces of heavily buttered toast and chocolate milk. And that was like 1,500 calories right there. New day, new mini challenge. I opened up my envelope for the day, and my new challenge was eat 10,000 calories of bacon. Okay, I should have probably opened the envelope before having my first meal of the day, so I'm gonna have to eat an extra 1,500 calories today. So here's a surprise, I did some bacon research before heading off to the grocery store and discovered that baking bacon actually makes it have more calories than frying it in a pan. If someone can explain the science of that, I'm listening. Alright, so 1 slice of bacon is 43 calories, give or take, which meant I had to eat a whopping 233 slices throughout the day to hit 10 calories. That's a lot of bacon. And it was a lot of frying. Except I went with baking the bacon instead because A, it was easier and faster to cook dozens of slices at a time that way, and B, it has a higher calorie count than pan frying. I didn't just sit down and eat this mountain of bacon all at one go, of course. That would be insane. I just ate strips throughout my entire day. Literally all day long I was snacking on strips of bacon because that's how much bacon it takes to eat 10,000 calories. The girlfriend was terrified about the salt content, and she's probably right to worry, so I drank a ton of water too so that it would help flush it out of my system. Whether that was good enough or not, I suspect I'll find out in a week or two when the real health implications of all this are made apparent. Day 4. Okay, day 4. Only this time I opened the challenge envelope before I ate breakfast, which was a good call. Today I had to eat 10,000 calories of only liquid foods, and the challenge came with a ton of suggestions on what to drink because I think Infographics is as concerned about the salt content of all the bacon I ate on the previous day as the girlfriend was. Basically, today I'm not allowed an ounce of salt, and the girlfriend was there to make sure that this rule was enforced. Also, everything had to be liquid. I took out our juicer and prepared it early in the morning for what would probably be the hardest day of its life. So what did I eat? Fruit smoothies, vegetable smoothies, a whole lot of weight gain workout powders, which all taste disgusting. Honestly, today was the easiest day so far of eating 10,000 calories. The juices definitely went through me faster than solid food. Although it was by far the worst tasting day. Workout protein powders are like the best way to drink your way to 10 calories, but they all taste like elephant ass. How is it that we can put men on the moon but we can't make protein shakes taste good? Day 5. Alright, infographics definitely saved the best for last. But before I tell you about my 5th mini challenge, let me talk to you about your toilet. Your toilet is your friend. It's there when you're happy, it's there when you're sad. It literally takes all your crap and never complains, flushing it away and out of your life. You know what happens when you eat 10,000 calories a day for a whole week? Your toilet starts to not be your friend anymore. Your toilet gets tired of taking your crap. Again, literally. Your toilet breaks down. I imagine that the reason for this is obvious in most of you, our dear viewers' minds. 10,000 calories that get put into your body have to come back out somehow, and that's put a hell of a strain on our simple suburban toilet. I imagine that the Mountain and other mega athletes on these super diets must have industrial toilets especially built to handle the load. I went ahead and added the cost of a plumber to my expense report for the infographics. Their dumb challenge idea, their plumber bill as far as I'm concerned. Also, I swear I heard the plumber whisper a prayer before shutting the door behind him in the bathroom. So, mini challenge, not gonna lie, probably one of my favorites ever. Today I had to eat 10,000 calories of desserts. Yes, desserts, literally my favorite thing in the entire world. I was like a kid on Christmas morning, rushing to the grocery store to purchase any and every type of cake, cream puff, and muffin they had available. The girlfriend, of course, was not nearly so thrilled about all this, but this was my challenge and I was determined to complete it. I promised to buy her something nice with the extra $200. Or I would have, if I could have completed it. Listen, eating all the cake and sweets you can stuff in your mouth sounds easy until you realize just how much 10,000 calories really is. Also, the sugar content is insane. And by the time I had wolfed down a lemon meringue pie and a chocolate cheesecake and an entire sheet of cinnamon rolls, I was ready to have a diabetic coma. I managed to power my way through a coconut cream pie and another cheesecake before I had to call it quits. By our approximation, I hit 8,000 calories but simply couldn't stomach 2,000 more. Honestly, I think it's all that fat and sugar content, or maybe my body just can't handle extreme amounts of food anymore. Either way, I had to fight not to vomit everything I'd eaten over the course of the day up, and ultimately, I put up my white flag and declared defeat. I didn't quite make it, but I did finish 4 out of 5 mini challenges and got to experience the insanity of a super diet. Also, I ate our entire month's grocery shopping in just 1 week, and I'm pretty sure I can't ever speak to our plumber. Now it's time to take it easy and work off the 4 pounds I gained in just this 1 week. The girlfriend is picking the menu for the rest of the month, and she promised plenty of fruits and veggies to fix all the damage this diet did on my body, and you know what? I'm okay with that. Ready for more weird food challenges? Check out I Drank Only Soda for a month and this is what happened, or click this other video instead.